Close your eyes and imagine stepping through the mists of time. Back to an era when dragons soared through painted clouds on palace walls, and a scent of jasmine tea drifted through moonlit courtyards. Welcome to Imperial China, a civilization that stretched across more than 2 millennia, where emperors claimed the mandate of heaven and scholars penned poetry that still makes hearts flutter today. This is a land where silk threads whispered secrets of luxury, where paper was born from humble rags, and where the Great Wall rose like a stone dragon across impossible distances. Here, in these gentle pages, we'll wander together through bamboo groves and marble halls, discovering stories that will carry you softly toward dreams. 1. The Great Wall's Human Symphony. Picture the year 221 BCE, when Emperor Qin Shi Huang stood atop a mountain peak, gazing across his newly unified realm. In his mind's eye, he saw something impossible, a wall stretching like a stone dragon across thousands of miles. This wasn't merely construction, it was orchestrating human endeavor on a scale never before imagined. Over 800,000 souls were summoned to this monumental task. Nearly 1/5 of China's entire population became part of this living, breathing project. Soldiers marched alongside farmers. Craftsmen worked beside scholars, all united in transforming the emperor's celestial vision into earthly reality. From the misty shores of the China Sea to the windswept plains of Gansu province, this human river flowed across 3,000 miles of terrain. Villages emptied as entire communities migrated to construction sites. The logistics alone stagger the imagination. Feeding this army of workers, transporting materials across mountain passes, coordinating the efforts of hundreds of thousands. It was humanity itself becoming architecture, breath by breath, stone by stone. 2. The price of immortality. But every great dream demands its sacrifice, and the Great Wall's price was written in human tears. As winter winds howled through mountain passes and summer sun blazed mercilessly, workers faced conditions that tested the very limits of human endurance. An estimated 400,000 people gave their lives to this stone leviathan. Fathers who never returned home, sons who became one with the earth they moved. In remote valleys, archaeologists still find ancient bones, silent witnesses to this monumental sacrifice. These weren't just statistics in some dusty imperial record. They were Zhang the farmer, who left behind 3 children, Li the mason, whose wife waited by the window each evening. Countless souls whose names were swallowed by time, but whose sacrifice became legend. Yet from this profound loss emerged something extraordinary. Not just a wall, but a testament to what humans can achieve when they unite behind a shared vision. The workers' sacrifice transformed individual tragedy into collective immortality, creating one of humanity's most enduring monuments. Their spirits seemed to whisper still in the mountain winds. 3. 8,000 silent guardians. In 1974, farmers digging a well near Zan made a discovery that would shake the world. Their shovels struck something hard in the earth. What emerged from that dusty hole was nothing short of miraculous. An underground army of over 8,000 life-size clay warriors stood in perfect formation, each one a masterpiece of individual craftsmanship. No 2 faces were alike, some stern and weathered, others young and eager, each bearing the unique features of real soldiers from over 2 millennia ago. These weren't mass-produced figures. They were portraits in clay. Master craftsmen had studied living soldiers, capturing the curve of the nose, the set of determined eyes, the way a mouth might tighten before battle. Some warriors bore mustaches, others had their hair in top knots, each detail lovingly preserved in terracotta. Accompanying these silent sentinels were 130 chariots pulled by 520 horses, plus 150 cavalry mounts, an entire army frozen in time. They stand facing east toward the emperor's ancient enemies, eternal guardians prepared for battles that would never come. Even in death, they maintained their watch. 4. 38 years of patient creation. The terracotta army wasn't born overnight. It was a labor of love spanning nearly 4 decades. When a future emperor was merely a 13-year-old prince, architects and artists were already sketching plans for his eternal guardian force. Imagine it, 720,000 workers dedicating their lives to this underground marvel. Day after day, year after year, skilled potters shaped clay into warriors while blacksmiths forged real weapons. Bronze workers cast intricate chariot fittings as painters prepared pigments that would bring the army to life. Entire workshops hummed with activity. The sound of hammers shaping bronze, the gentle slap of wet clay being molded into human form. Kills blazed day and night, firing warrior after warrior into ceramic immortality. Quality controllers inspected each figure, ensuring every detail met Imperial standards. This wasn't just manufacturing. It was artistic devotion on an industrial scale. Master craftsmen trained apprentices who would spend decades perfecting their art. Families passed down techniques from father to son, each generation adding their skills to this growing underground city. The emperor's tomb became a beacon drawing China's finest artisans, all working toward a single, magnificent dream. 5. Colors lost to time. If you could travel back to the moment these warriors first emerged from their kills, you would gasp at their vibrant splendor. These weren't the somber gray figures we see today. They blazed with color like a magnificent parade frozen in time. Bright reds, painted from cinnabar, adorned the warrior's armor, while blues derived from precious lapis lazuli colored their robes. Green malachite highlighted decorative elements, as purple brought imperial touches to life. Pink faces with black hair and brown eyes. Each warrior was a rainbow of carefully applied mineral pigments. Master painters worked with brushes made from animal hair, applying layer upon layer of color with the precision of court artists. They mixed their paints from ground minerals and plant extracts, creating hues that had never been seen before in such quantities. But time is the cruelest artist of all. When archaeologists first exposed these warriors to air after 2,000 years underground, they watched helplessly as the colors began to fade within minutes. Ancient pigments that had survived millennia crumbled like autumn leaves, taking with them the army's magnificent splendor. Today, conservators work frantically to preserve what colors remain, racing against time itself. 6. Weapons that defied time. Perhaps the most miraculous discovery within the terracotta army wasn't the warriors themselves, but the weapons they carried. Bronze swords, crossbow bolts, spears, and arrowheads lay scattered throughout the pits. And after more than 2 millennia buried in earth, they remained razor-sharp. Scientists were astounded to discover that these ancient weapons had been treated with chromium, a metal coating technology that wouldn't be invented in the West until the 1970s. Chinese metallurgists had somehow mastered chrome plating over 2,000 years ago, creating weapons that could slice through silk scarves even today. Imagine the skill required. Ancient smiths heating bronze to precise temperatures, then applying chromium compounds with techniques lost to history. They created weapons so perfect that they seemed touched by magic, swords that could cut through time itself. When archaeologists first lifted these blades from the earth, they gleamed like they'd been forged yesterday. The chrome coating had protected them from rust and corrosion, preserving the craftsman's work across 20 centuries. These weapons whisper of technological mastery that challenges our assumptions, reminding us that innovation often comes from the most unexpected places and times. 7. Heaven's conditional contract. In the grand halls of Chinese political philosophy, no concept was more powerful than the mandate of heaven. Unlike the divine right of European kings, this was a conditional contract between ruler and cosmos, one that could be revoked at any moment. Picture ancient Chinese sages developing this revolutionary idea that heaven itself watched over earthly rulers, judging their moral character and governance. An emperor's legitimacy didn't come from birth alone, but from virtuous behavior, wise decisions, and genuine care for his people's welfare. This created a fascinating paradox. While emperors claimed absolute power as sons of heaven, they simultaneously bore crushing moral responsibilities. Every decision was scrutinized not just by human advisors, but by the cosmic forces themselves. The mandate wasn't permanent. It was earned daily through righteous action. A corrupt ruler would lose heaven's favor, and with it, the right to rule. This meant that rebellion against an unworthy emperor wasn't treason. It was cosmic justice restoring natural order. Confucian scholars used this doctrine like a gentle but firm leash, reminding emperors that true power came not from force, but from moral authority that heaven alone could grant. 8. When heaven withdrew its blessing. Chinese astronomers and philosophers developed an intricate system for reading heaven's mood, and the signs were written across the natural world in dramatic, unmistakable strokes. When floods ravaged the countryside, when earthquakes toppled buildings, when famine stalked the land, these weren't random natural disasters. They were heaven's voice speaking in the language of catastrophe, warning that the current ruler had lost divine favor. Picture court astronomers scanning the night sky for comets or unusual star patterns, interpreting these celestial events as messages from above. Solar eclipses were particularly ominous, suggesting that heaven itself was turning its face away from an unworthy emperor. Rebellions and social unrest carried special significance. They were seen as the people responding to heaven's withdrawal of support. When peasants rose up, when scholars protested, when natural disasters multiplied, wise rulers took these as warnings to reform their ways. This system created a remarkable check on imperial power. Emperors who ignored these divine warnings did so at their peril. History was filled with dynasties that fell after ignoring heaven's increasingly urgent signals. The natural world became a vast communication system, connecting earthly rulers to cosmic judgment in ways both beautiful and terrifying. 9. The world's greatest metropolis. In the 8th century CE, if you wanted to see the beating heart of world civilization, all roads led to Chang'an. This magnificent capital stretched across the landscape like a terrestrial reflection of heaven itself, home to over 2 million souls who made it the largest city on Earth. Walking through Chang'an's gates was like entering a living dream. Wide boulevards lined with willow trees, magnificent palaces with upturned roofs that seemed to dance against the sky, and markets that blazed with colors from across the known world. The city's very layout reflected cosmic principles, its walls shaped like the Big Dipper constellation, connecting earthly power to celestial patterns. Every street, every building placement followed ancient principles of harmony between heaven and earth. This wasn't just China's capital, it was the world's first truly international city. Diplomats arrived bearing gifts from distant kingdoms. Merchants traded goods that had traveled impossible distances. Scholars came seeking wisdom in the greatest libraries ever assembled. The city pulsed with life day and night. Poetry readings in moonlit gardens, theatrical performances in torchlit courtyards, philosophical debates that lasted until dawn. Chang'an was humanity's greatest achievement, a place where dreams took physical form. 10. A United Nations in ancient times. What made Chang'an truly extraordinary wasn't just its size, but its remarkable diversity. Within those cosmic walls lived 25,000 foreigners from every corner of the known world, creating the first truly cosmopolitan society in human history. Persian merchants with their elegant carpets shared markets with Arab traders carrying precious spices. Sogdian wine sellers with green eyes and blonde hair served customers in taverns where Turkish musicians played haunting melodies. Japanese monks studied alongside Indian philosophers, while Syrian Christians worshipped in churches built next to Buddhist temples. The Western market buzzed with a dozen languages, where you could buy frankincense from Arabia, jade from Central Asia, or precious stones from distant mountains whose names existed only in legend. Korean diplomats brushed shoulders with Tibetan pilgrims, all united in this magnificent melting pot. Restaurant owners served cuisine from across Asia. Persian rice dishes, Indian curries, and Central Asian noodles all found eager customers. Fashion reflected this diversity. Chinese silk robes influenced by Persian patterns, jewelry incorporating Indian gems, and hairstyles borrowed from nomadic tribes. Chang'an proved that diversity was strength, that different cultures could not only coexist, but create something more beautiful than any single tradition alone. 11. The Dragon and Phoenix of Chang'an. Chang'an's walls weren't random constructions. They were cosmic architecture that connected earthly power to celestial forces. Shaped like the Big Dipper constellation, the city became a three-dimensional star map, its very streets following the patterns that ancient astronomers saw dancing across the night sky. Imagine Chinese architects and feng shui masters spending years planning this celestial blueprint, measuring angles with astronomical precision, ensuring that every gate aligned with specific stars. The city's main axis pointed toward the North Star, connecting the emperor's throne to the unchanging center of heaven. The symbolism went deeper than mere layout. The emperor's palace sat at the cosmic center, like the pole star around which all other stars revolved. Each district represented different constellations, with government buildings, temples, and markets all positioned according to ancient principles of harmony. When the emperor walked through his capital, he was literally following the path of stars across the earth. Court ceremonies aligned with celestial events, coronations timed to lunar phases, important decisions made when planets achieved auspicious configurations. Chang'an wasn't just a city. It was a prayer in stone and wood, a physical manifestation of the Chinese belief that earthly order should mirror heavenly perfection. 12. Where all gods were welcome. In most ancient cities, religious diversity meant conflict, but Chang'an's greatness lay in its embrace of spiritual plurality. Buddhism flourished alongside Nestorian Christianity. Zoroastrian fire temples stood near Manichaean prayer halls, while traditional Chinese Taoism wove through everything like incense smoke. Picture the extraordinary scene. Christian monks from Syria chanting prayers in Aramaic while Tibetan Buddhists spun prayer wheels in nearby courtyards. Zoroastrian priests maintained sacred fires as Chinese Taoists practiced their flowing exercises in temple gardens. This wasn't mere tolerance, it was active encouragement of spiritual exploration. The Tang emperors understood that a great civilization needed great ideas, and those ideas often came wrapped in foreign traditions. Persian Zoroastrianism influenced Chinese concepts of good and evil. Indian Buddhism transformed Chinese art and philosophy, while Christianity introduced new perspectives on charity and compassion. Religious festivals became city-wide celebrations, where people of all faiths joined together in joy. The Buddha's birthday saw Christian and Zoroastrian merchants closing their shops to join Buddhist processions, while Chinese New Year brought together every community in Chang'an. This spiritual symphony created a city where souls could flourish, where seeking truth mattered more than defending tradition. 13. From concubine to empress. In the rigid hierarchy of Imperial China, one woman shattered every rule and rewrote the very definition of power. Wu Zetian began as a fifth-rank concubine, the lowest position in the emperor's household. Yet through intelligence, determination, and political genius, she rose to become China's only female emperor. Her journey began when she caught Emperor Taizong's attention at age 14, not through beauty alone, but through her sharp wit and fearless spirit. When asked how she would tame a wild horse, she boldly replied that she would need an iron whip, an iron mace, and a dagger, demonstrating a strength that impressed even the emperor. But Wu Zetian's brilliance truly shone in her political maneuvering. After Taizong's death, she strategically positioned herself to influence his son Gaozong. She understood that in a world designed to keep women powerless, she had to be twice as smart, twice as ruthless, and infinitely more creative than any man. Her rise wasn't just personal triumph. It was a revolution that challenged fundamental assumptions about gender and power. She proved that leadership transcended physical form, that the mandate of heaven could fall upon anyone with the wisdom to wield it justly. 14. the Buddha's chosen daughter, to legitimize her unprecedented rule as a female emperor. Wu Zetian made a move so audacious it still astounds historians. She declared herself the earthly incarnation of Maitreya, the Buddha of the future, claiming divine Buddhist authority to rule China. This wasn't mere political theater, it was theological revolution. Wu Zetian commissioned the Great Cloud Sutra, a Buddhist text that prophesied a female ruler who would bring golden age to the world. She built magnificent temples, sponsored Buddhist art on an unprecedented scale, and surrounded herself with learned monks who supported her spiritual claims. Picture the scene. This remarkable woman sitting on the dragon throne, wearing emperor's robes, while Buddhist ceremonies replaced Confucian rituals in imperial protocol. She created new characters in the Chinese writing system, including a special character for her own name that suggested the brilliance of sun and moon. Her Buddhist patronage wasn't cynical manipulation. She genuinely embraced the religion's emphasis on merit over birth, its acceptance of female spiritual authority, and its promise of transformation through enlightenment. Under her rule, Buddhism flourished like never before in Chinese history. Wu Zetian proved that true power comes not from tradition, but from the courage to imagine new possibilities and the wisdom to make them reality. 15. The Golden Age of Verse. If heaven had a sound, it would be Tang Dynasty poetry flowing like water over smooth stones. This was the era that produced over 48,900 poems by more than 2,200 authors, creating a literary treasury that still moves hearts across the world more than a millennium later. Poetry wasn't mere entertainment in Tang China. It was the very language of educated society. Government officials were required to compose verses for their civil service examinations, making literary skill as essential as mathematical ability or administrative knowledge. Picture moonlit gatherings in imperial gardens, where scholar officials would challenge each other to compose poems on assigned themes. Wine cups passed from hand to hand as verses flowed like conversation, each poet building upon previous lines to create collaborative masterpieces. The variety was staggering, from Li Bai's ecstatic celebrations of wine and friendship to Du Fu's heartbreaking chronicles of war and social injustice. Some poems captured single moments of beauty, a fallen petal, a distant bell, while others painted vast landscapes of human emotion. This poetry became China's gift to world literature. Verses that speak directly to the human heart regardless of time or culture. In Tang poetry, we hear the eternal voice of humanity singing its joys and sorrows. 16. The immortal poet's wild spirit. Li Bai danced through life like a man touched by celestial fire, earning his title as the immortal poet through verses that seemed to capture moonbeams and transform them into words. Possibly the son of a foreign merchant, he embodied the Tang Dynasty's cosmopolitan spirit and love of life's pleasures. This wandering poet never held steady employment, preferring to travel China's vast landscapes with his wine cup and writing brush. He celebrated friendship, nature, and especially wine, writing lines like, "I raise my cup to invite the bright moon. With my shadow we become three," that still echo in hearts worldwide. Li Bai wrote with supernatural speed, allegedly composing entire poems in the time it took to drink a cup of wine. His verses flowed with such natural grace that they seemed effortless, though achieving that effortlessness required absolute mastery of language and form. Legend says he died trying to embrace the moon's reflection in a river, a fitting end for a poet who lived at the intersection of reality and dream. His poetry wasn't just literature. It was liquid starlight, capturing the Tang Dynasty's optimism and joy in being alive. Reading Li Bai today, we glimpse a soul that refused to be contained by earthly limitations, a spirit that still dances among clouds and moonbeams. 17. The poet sage's compassionate vision. While Li Bai sang of wine and moonlight, Du Fu chronicled the human heart in all its beauty and brokenness. Known as the poet's sage, he served as the Tang Dynasty's moral conscience, documenting both imperial splendor and common people's suffering with equal attention and love. Du Fu lived through the devastating and Lushan Rebellion, which shattered the Tang Golden Age and left millions dead or displaced. Where other poets might have turned away from such horror, Du Fu faced it directly, writing lines like "Blue is the smoke of war, white the bones of men," that capture humanity's capacity for both destruction and endurance. His poetry reveals a heart that ached for social justice. Verses that celebrated the simple dignity of farmers and soldiers while criticizing the excess of imperial courts. He wrote about his own poverty with neither self-pity nor bitterness, instead finding profound meaning in life's struggles. Unlike Li Bai's supernatural ease, Du Fu's poetry was crafted with meticulous care. He revised his verses endlessly, polishing each line until it achieved perfect clarity and emotional resonance. His poems weren't just artistic achievements, they were acts of love for humanity itself. Through Du Fu's eyes, we see a civilization capable of both magnificent beauty and terrible cruelty, and one man's determination to honor both truth and compassion. 18. Poetry is the path to power. In Tang Dynasty China, mastering poetry wasn't an artistic luxury. It was essential for anyone hoping to serve in government. The imperial examination system required candidates to compose verses on assigned themes, making literary skill as important as knowledge of law or administration. Picture thousands of young scholars across the empire, spending years memorizing classical poetry forms, practicing calligraphy, and developing their own poetic voices. They studied under master poets, learning not just technical skills, but the deeper art of capturing human experience in perfect language. Examination halls echoed with the scratching of brushes on paper, as candidates composed poems under time pressure that would determine their entire futures. Judges evaluated not just technical correctness, but originality, emotional depth, and the elusive quality of genuine inspiration. This system created a governing class united by shared literary culture, officials who could communicate through poetic illusion and appreciate the aesthetic dimensions of policy decisions. It meant that China's administrators were also its artists, bringing beauty and wisdom to the practical work of governing. The result was a civilization where poetry flowed through every level of society, from imperial edicts written in verse to love letters that quoted ancient masters, creating a culture where language itself was art. 19. The sacred dance of tea. In the gentle ritual of Chinese tea ceremony, we glimpse the very soul of Chinese philosophy transformed into daily practice. The Gongfu tea ceremony embodies doing something well, where every movement carries meaning and every gesture reflects deeper truths about harmony and mindfulness. Picture the careful preparation. Tiny porcelain cups warming in hot water while the tea master measures leaves with scientific precision. The clay teapot, aged and seasoned by countless previous ceremonies, becomes an instrument capable of drawing forth the tea's hidden essence. This isn't simply about brewing a beverage. It's about creating a sacred space where time slows down and attention focuses completely on the present moment. Participants shed their daily concerns, entering a realm where the only reality is the perfect curve of steam rising from heated cups. The ceremony follows ancient rhythms, warming the implements to awaken their ceramic spirits, washing the tea leaves to release their sleeping flavors, then pouring with movements as precise as calligraphy. Each step builds upon the last, creating a meditation in motion that transforms both server and guests. In this simple act of sharing tea, we discover profound truths about patience, attention, and the art of being fully present in each precious moment of existence. 20. The temperature of perfection. Within the tea ceremony's gentle ritual lies sophisticated knowledge passed down through generations. The understanding that different teas require different water temperatures to reveal their true character, like keys that unlock specific doors of flavor and aroma. Delicate green teas, with their tender leaves and subtle flavors. Need cooler water around 75 degrees Celsius to avoid scalding their gentle essence. Too hot, and their natural sweetness turns bitter. Too cool, and their complex flavors remain locked away like sleeping songs. Robust, pure teas, aged and fermented like fine wine, can withstand boiling water that would destroy lesser leaves. Their deep, earthy flavors emerge only under intense heat, revealing layers of taste built up over years of careful aging. Master tea brewers develop an almost supernatural ability to judge water temperature, watching steam patterns, listening to the subtle sounds of heating water, even sensing the energy radiating from their kettles. They understand that water itself has moods, and matching those moods to specific teas creates perfect harmony. This knowledge represents thousands of years of patient experimentation, countless tea masters refining their understanding drop by drop, degree by degree, until the simple act of heating water becomes a precise art form that honors both tradition and the unique character of each precious leaf. 21. The Awakening of Leaves. In the poetry of Chinese tea ceremony, even waste becomes ritual, even discarding becomes reverence. The first steeping of precious tea leaves is always poured away, but this isn't carelessness or extravagance. It's a gentle awakening that prepares both tea and drinker for deeper communion. Picture the tea master pouring hot water over sleeping leaves, watching them unfurl like flowers greeting dawn as steam carries away dust and impurities accumulated during storage and transport. This first brief immersion awakens the leaves, opening their cellular structure and beginning the slow release of flavors that will unfold through subsequent steepings. The discarded water takes with it any harsh or bitter elements, leaving behind only the tea's pure essence ready to share its gifts. This washing is both practical and symbolic, a purification that honors the leaf journey from mountain garden to ceramic cup. Watching this first steeping poured away, guests understand they're witnessing not waste but preparation, like a musician tuning instruments before performance or a painter preparing canvas before creating art. The ceremony teaches patience, showing that the most precious experiences often require careful preparation and gentle coaxing. In this simple act of pouring away perfectly good tea, we learn that sometimes we must release something good to make space for something extraordinary. 22. The Alchemy of Earth and Fire. In the quiet workshops of ancient China, master potters discovered the secret of transforming humble earth into something harder than steel, yet more delicate than flower petals. Chinese porcelain was born from an alchemical marriage of kaolin clay and feldspar, fused together in kilns that blazed hotter than 1,300 degrees Celsius. Picture these ceramic wizards tending fires that burn day and night, watching temperatures with the intensity of astronomers studying stars. They understood that porcelain demanded perfect timing. Too little heat, and the clay remained merely earthenware. Too much, and their precious vessels would collapse into molten puddles. The transformation happening inside those kilns was nothing short of magical. Clay particles melting and reforming into crystalline structures stronger than iron. The feldspar acted like a flux, lowering the melting point and creating that distinctive translucent quality that made Chinese porcelain the wonder of the world. When kiln doors finally opened after days of careful firing, what emerged seemed touched by divine hands. Vessels so thin they appeared to glow from within, yet so strong they could last for centuries. This wasn't just pottery. It was earth transformed into eternal beauty through the marriage of human skill and elemental fire. 23. Colors that dance like living things. The Tang Dynasty's three-color glazes created ceramics that seemed alive, where green copper, amber iron, and cream combined in flowing patterns that appeared to move and breathe like captured aurora. These Sankai pieces weren't merely decorated. They were landscapes painted in liquid minerals. Master glaziers discovered that different metal oxides produce distinct colors when fired. Copper creating everything from deep green to brilliant red depending on kiln atmosphere. Iron flowing from pale yellow to rich brown, lead providing the creamy white that unified these earthen symphonies. But the real magic happened during firing, when these glazes began to flow and merge like slow rivers of color. Craftsmen learned to control this flowing, creating patterns that seemed random yet followed hidden laws of beauty. No two pieces emerged exactly alike, each one a unique conversation between human intention and elemental chance. The glazes seemed to possess their own intelligence, pooling in hollows, flowing around raised areas, creating organic patterns that reminded viewers of flowing water, wind-blown sand, or clouds drifting across autumn skies. These weren't just ceramics. They were captured moments of natural beauty, frozen in clay and fired into permanence that could outlast dynasties themselves. 24. Porcelain thin as whispers. Ming Dynasty artisans achieved what seemed impossible, creating porcelain so thin it appeared translucent, earning the poetic name eggshell porcelain for its delicate beauty that seemed to glow with inner light when held against flame or sunlight. These master potters worked with clay walls thinner than paper, requiring hands steadier than surgeons and eyes sharper than jewelers. One careless movement, one moment of inattention, and weeks of patient work would crumble into worthless fragments. The technique demanded perfect clay preparation, every impurity removed, every air bubble eliminated through endless kneading and aging. The throwing process became a meditation. Potter and wheel moving in harmony as walls rose thinner and thinner without losing their structural integrity. Firing these delicate treasures required extraordinary skill. Temperatures had to be precise to the degree, timing calculated to the minute. Too much heat would cause the thin walls to warp or collapse. Too little would leave them fragile and porous. When successful, these pieces seemed to defy the laws of physics. Bowls you could read through, vases that rang like bells when touched, cups that made ordinary water taste like nectar from heaven. They represented the absolute pinnacle of ceramic artistry, proof that human hands could transform earth into pure poetry. 25. Secrets worth dying for. For over 1,000 years, the secret of silk production was so jealously guarded that revealing it carried the ultimate penalty. Death awaited anyone who dared share the mysteries of sericulture with foreign eyes, making silk China's most precious state secret. Picture border guards searching every departing caravan, examining luggage for hidden silkworm eggs or mulberry seeds that could establish rival silk industries. Diplomats underwent thorough inspections, their clothing checked for concealed cocoons that might carry China's golden secret to distant lands. This wasn't mere economic protectionism. It was recognition that silk represented something far more valuable than gold or precious stones. Silk was liquid luxury, threads that could buy kingdoms, fabrics that emperors coveted more than crowns. The penalty for betraying these secrets wasn't just personal. It threatened the economic foundation of the entire empire. Silk exports funded armies, built palaces, and maintained China's position as the world's greatest civilization. Protecting silk production methods meant protecting China's very survival. Yet, inevitably, secrets have a way of escaping even the most vigilant guards. Legend tells of a Chinese princess who smuggled silkworm eggs in her elaborate headdress when marrying a foreign prince, choosing love over loyalty and changing the course of world history with her hidden cargo. 26. Threads longer than dreams. Within each delicate silk cocoon lies one of nature's most extraordinary achievements, a single continuous thread that can stretch over a kilometer long, longer than many city blocks, spanning distances that seem impossible for something emerging from such a tiny source. Picture patient workers in ancient silk workshops, carefully immersing cocoons in warm water to soften the saracen that binds the fibers together. With practiced fingers, they would locate the threads beginning and slowly, gently unwind it, maintaining perfect tension to prevent breaks that would ruin the precious fiber. This unwinding process required extraordinary skill. Too fast, and the delicate thread would snap. too slow, and the fiber would become tangled or weakened. Workers developed an almost supernatural sensitivity, feeling through their fingertips the exact tension needed to coax each thread from its silken prison. A single cocoon might take an hour to unwind completely, yielding enough fiber to weave several inches of fabric. Multiply this by thousands of cocoons, and you begin to understand the incredible patience required to produce even small amounts of silk. These endless threads became highways of luxury, carrying Chinese craftsmanship to every corner of the known world, proving that sometimes the most precious things come wrapped in the smallest packages. 27. The teacup that changed history. Around 2700 BCE, a cocoon fell into Empress Leisu's teacup, and in that simple accident, the course of human civilization shifted forever. As the cocoon softened in the hot water, the Empress noticed delicate threads beginning to unravel, and her curious fingers discovered something that would become more precious than gold. Picture this moment of discovery. The Empress sitting in her garden pavilion, enjoying afternoon tea, when divine providence delivered this gift into her very hands. As she gently pulled the cocoon apart, meters of lustrous fiber emerged, stronger than plant fibers, yet softer than anything she had ever touched. Her excitement must have been electric, realizing immediately that this wasn't just an interesting natural phenomenon, but a discovery that could transform how humans dressed and lived. She called for her attendants, demonstrating how these mysterious threads could be wound together and woven in a fabric. This legendary moment represents more than historical curiosity. It symbolizes how the greatest discoveries often emerge from simple accidents observed by prepared minds. Empress Leisu's willingness to investigate something unexpected, to see possibility where others might see mere oddity, established her as the patron saint of one of humanity's most important industries. From that fallen cocoon, silk roads would stretch across continents. Empires would rise and fall, and human culture would be forever enriched by beauty born from chance. 28. The scholar who freed knowledge. In the year 105 CE, a court eunuch named Kai Luan performed an act of genius that would democratize human knowledge forever. In his quiet workshop, he experimented with tree bark, hemp waste, old rags, and fishing nets, transforming these humble materials into something that would change civilization itself. Picture Kai Luan working by lamplight, soaking his raw materials in vats of water, beating them into pulp, then spreading the mixture thin on screens to dry. He was solving a massive problem. Writing materials were either too expensive for common people or too cumbersome for practical use. Before his innovation, the wealthy wrote on silk cloth that cost fortunes, while officials scratched characters on heavy bamboo strips that required wagons to transport. Books were literally back-breaking. Knowledge was physically heavy and financially crushing. Kai Luan's paper changed everything. Suddenly, thoughts could be recorded cheaply and carried easily. A scholar could slip an entire library into his traveling bag. A merchant could keep detailed records without bankruptcy. A lover could send written words across vast distances. This wasn't just technical innovation, it was liberation. Kai Luan had given humanity wings, allowing ideas to fly freely across space and time, proving that sometimes the greatest revolutions begin in the quietest workshops with the humblest materials. 29. The gift that unlocked minds. Paper didn't just make writing affordable. It fundamentally transformed human consciousness by making knowledge accessible to everyone, not just the wealthy elite who could afford silk or the strong-backed scribes who could manage bamboo strips. Before Kai Luan's revolution, learning was literally a luxury item. Books were so expensive that only imperial libraries and wealthy families could afford them, making education the privilege of birth rather than merit. Knowledge was trapped behind walls of economic impossibility. Picture the moment when the first sheets of paper emerged from Kai Luan's workshop, lighter than silk, cheaper than bamboo, yet strong enough to preserve words for centuries. Suddenly, a farmer's son could own books, a merchant could keep detailed records, a poet could share verses without bankrupting herself. This democratization of writing materials sparked an explosion of literacy. As schools could finally afford textbooks and libraries could expand beyond tiny collections of precious scrolls, ideas began flowing like water, no longer dammed up by economic barriers. Paper became the silent partner of every human achievement that followed, enabling scientific progress, literary flowering, and administrative efficiency that would have been impossible in a world where knowledge remained physically and financially heavy. Kailuan's gift proved that true power lies not in controlling information, but in setting it free. 30. The bronze oracle that felt Earth's pulse. Inosuta Trezit Deutsche. Zhang Heng presented the Han court with a device so extraordinary it seemed to border on magic. A bronze urn that could detect earthquakes hundreds of miles away, speaking in the voice of falling bronze balls when the earth itself whispered of distant disasters. Picture this remarkable instrument, 6 feet in diameter, adorned with 8 dragons positioned around its circumference like celestial guardians. Each dragon held a bronze ball in its mouth, while below, 8 bronze toads sat with upturned faces and open mouths, ready to catch whatever the dragons might release. Inside this bronze oracle, Zhang Heng had installed a pendulum mechanism so sensitive it could detect seismic waves too faint for human senses. When tremors reached the device, the pendulum would trigger the release of a ball from the dragon facing the earthquake's direction, providing both warning and directional information. The court initially viewed this invention with skepticism, until the day a ball dropped with no apparent cause, indicating an earthquake to the west. Officials scoffed, until a messenger arrived days later reporting an earthquake in a long region at precisely the time the device had been triggered. This bronze prophet represented more than mechanical ingenuity. It demonstrated humanity's growing ability to listen to nature's subtle languages, to hear warnings whispered by the earth itself, and respond with wisdom rather than surprise. 31. Dragons speaking earth secrets. Zhang Heng's earthquake detector wasn't just a scientific instrument. It was poetry in bronze, where Chinese artistic sensibility merged with practical engineering to create something both beautiful and functional, proving that utility and art could dance together in perfect harmony. Each of the 8 dragons was a masterpiece of bronze casting, their mouths carefully balanced to release balls at precisely the right seismic threshold. Too sensitive, and false alarms would panic the court. Too resistant, and real earthquakes might pass undetected. The bronze toads below weren't mere catchers. They were positioned to amplify the sound of falling balls, ensuring that even sleeping guards would hear Earth's warning cry. The acoustic design was as carefully calculated as the mechanical, creating a device that spoke to both eye and ear. When a ball dropped into a toad's mouth, the sound echoed through palace corridors like a bronze bell tolling news of distant disaster. Court officials would immediately consult maps, calculating which regions lay in the indicated direction and dispatching aid before refugees began arriving. This marriage of science and art reflected Chinese understanding that truth itself was beautiful. The devices serving practical purposes should also please the senses and honor the cosmic forces they sought to understand. Zhang Heng had created not just an earthquake detector, but a bronze poem dedicated to Earth's mysterious voice. 32. The stone spoon that found direction. Long before European explorers used compasses to discover new worlds, Chinese innovators had created the South Pointer, a magical instrument carved from lodestone that always knew which way led home, even when travelers lost themselves in trackless wilderness or featureless seas. Picture ancient Chinese artisans carefully carving naturally magnetized iron ore, shaping it into a spoon or ladle that would balance perfectly on a smooth bronze plate. This wasn't random craftsmanship. They had discovered that lodestone possessed mysterious properties, an invisible force that could guide travelers like an eternal star. The spoon-shaped compass rested on bronze heaven plates, marked with the 8 trigrams and 24 directions, transforming navigation into a cosmic conversation between human need and natural forces. The handle always pointed south, providing reliable direction even when clouds obscured the stars. This revolutionary tool represented humanity's first partnership with invisible forces. The recognition that nature contained powers beyond human senses, but not beyond human understanding. Chinese navigators learned to trust this stone guide, following its constant counsel across vast distances. The magnetic compass would eventually enable the great maritime explorations that connected continents, proving that sometimes the most important discoveries involve learning to listen to forces we cannot see, trusting invisible guides that never lie and never sleep. 33. The spiritual compass of home. Intriguingly, the magnetic compass wasn't first used for navigation, but for feng shui, the ancient art of harmonizing human dwellings with cosmic forces, proving that Chinese innovation often emerged from spiritual rather than purely practical concerns. Picture feng shui masters using these magnetic instruments to determine auspicious locations for homes, temples, and burial sites, understanding that invisible earth energies could influence human fortune and happiness. They weren't just finding direction, they were locating harmony itself. The compass helped practitioners align buildings with beneficial energy flows, ensuring that doors faced lucky directions and important rooms captured positive influences. Burial sites were especially crucial, as ancestors' spiritual well-being affected their descendants' prosperity for generations. This spiritual application reflected Chinese understanding that navigation involved more than physical movement. It required alignment with cosmic patterns that governed all existence. The compass wasn't just pointing toward magnetic north, it was indicating the direction of spiritual balance. When the compass finally reached maritime use, Chinese sailors carried with them this deeper understanding that true navigation involved harmonizing human intention with natural forces rather than conquering them. They sailed not just across water, but along currents of cosmic energy that connected all places and all times in one vast, interconnected web of meaning. 34. The harmony of three paths. In the gentle wisdom of Chinese civilization, three great philosophical traditions learned to dance together rather than fight for dominance. Confucianism, Taoism, and Buddhism merged into three teachings as one, creating a spiritual symphony where different melodies enhanced rather than competed with each other. Picture a Chinese scholar beginning his day with Confucian duties, governing wisely, honoring parents, maintaining social harmony through proper relationships and moral behavior. These teachings provided the ethical framework for engaged worldly life, the rules for building just societies and meaningful relationships. At midday, he might practice Taoist meditation, seeking harmony with nature's flow through Wu Wei, the art of effortless action that accomplishes everything by forcing nothing. Taoism offered the mystical complement to Confucian ethics, teaching that true power comes from understanding natural patterns rather than imposing artificial control. Evening might bring Buddhist contemplation, reflecting on suffering's causes, cultivating compassion for all beings, and understanding life's impermanent nature. Buddhism provided tools for transcending ego and discovering deeper truths about existence itself. Rather than seeing these as contradictory, Chinese thinkers recognized them as different aspects of complete wisdom. Confucianism for social harmony, Taoism for natural balance, Buddhism for spiritual liberation, all united in one integrated approach to living fully and wisely. 35. The temple where all paths meet. High on Mount Hung stands one of China's most remarkable architectural achievements, the Hanging Temple, where Laozi, Confucius, and Buddha share sacred space in perfect harmony, their statues gazing peacefully across the same valleys and mountains. This extraordinary structure, built impossibly into a cliff face, demonstrates that Chinese civilization could literally build bridges between different wisdom traditions. Visitors climb wooden stairs that seem to float in midair, passing shrines dedicated to all three great teachers who shaped Chinese thought. Picture pilgrims bowing before Confucius in the morning, offering incense to Buddha at noon, then ending their day with prayers to Laozi, all within the same temple complex. This wasn't religious confusion. It was spiritual integration at its finest. The temple's precarious position reflects Chinese understanding that truth itself requires courage, that wisdom often emerges from seemingly impossible positions where different perspectives merge into something greater than any single viewpoint. Architects deliberately chose this challenging location, demonstrating that the most profound insights often require us to step beyond safe, conventional ground. Suspended between earth and sky, the hanging temple embodies the Chinese belief that ultimate truth transcends all boundaries, uniting apparent opposites in one harmonious whole that honors every authentic path toward enlightenment. 36. The Revolution of Inner Light. Wang Yangming shattered centuries of orthodox thinking with a revolutionary insight born from exile and suffering, teaching that moral wisdom resided not in dusty books, but within every human heart, waiting to be discovered through introspection and sincere practice. While banished to remote Guizhou province for criticizing court corruption, Wang experienced a profound enlightenment at age 36. Sitting in the wilderness, far from libraries and teachers, he suddenly realized that the moral principles he had spent decades seeking in external texts were actually innate qualities of his own mind-heart. This school of mind challenged the prevailing orthodoxy that required extensive study of classical texts. Wang taught instead that every person possessed inborn moral knowledge that could lead directly to sagehood through sincere self-cultivation and ethical action. His famous doctrine united knowing and acting into one seamless process, declaring that true knowledge existed only when expressed through behavior. You truly know filial piety only by being filial, understand justice only by acting justly, comprehend compassion only by living compassionately. This revolutionary teaching democratized wisdom, suggesting that enlightenment was available to everyone regardless of education or social status. Wang Yangming had discovered that the greatest teacher wasn't external authority, but the moral intuition that heaven had placed within every human soul. 37. The Bridge Between Worlds. Filial piety created an invisible bridge spanning the chasm between life and death, where living family members served as active intermediaries between earthly existence and the ancestral realm, maintaining relationships that transcended physical mortality. Picture Chinese families gathering before ancestral altars, offering carefully prepared foods, burning specially printed spirit money, and sharing family news with departed relatives as if they were physically present. These weren't empty rituals. They were real conversations, maintaining real relationships across the boundary of death. Children learned that their responsibilities to parents didn't end with burial, but continued through regular ceremonies, proper grave maintenance, and living in ways that honored ancestral memory. The dead remained family members, just in a different realm requiring different forms of care and communication. This system created profound psychological continuity, where individuals understood themselves as links in an eternal chain connecting past wisdom with future possibility. Every decision was made with awareness of ancestral approval or disappointment. Every achievement was shared with those who had made it possible. The practice established death not as ending, but as transition from active to advisory roles within the same ongoing family story. Ancestors became protective spirits, guides whose accumulated wisdom could still bless and protect their descendants across the generations. 38. When ancestors return to Earth. The Ghost Festival reveals the continuing vitality of ancestor veneration, where once each year, the boundary between worlds grows thin and departed family members return home for reunion feasts that blend sorrow with celebration, memory with hope. Picture families preparing elaborate meals featuring the favorite dishes of departed relatives, setting places at dinner tables for grandparents who died decades ago, believing that love transcends physical form and that proper preparation can actually nourish spirits across the divide between life and death. During this sacred time, families visit graves with cleaning supplies and fresh flowers, not as mournful duty, but as joyful preparation for reunion. They burn paper replicas of houses, cars, and money, providing departed relatives with spiritual versions of earthly comforts. The festival creates a temporary collapse of time, where past and present merge in one continuous celebration of family bonds that death cannot break. Children learn their heritage through stories told during these gatherings, connecting with ancestors they never met in physical life. This annual reunion demonstrates Chinese understanding that family is larger than any single generation, that love creates bonds strong enough to bridge any gap, and that honoring the past provides the strongest foundation for building the future. 39. The cosmic mathematics of power. The Forbidden City contains exactly 9,999 rooms, one less than the mythical 10,000 rooms in Heaven's Palace, demonstrating the Chinese principle that earthly power must remain appropriately humble before cosmic perfection, even while reaching toward divine splendor. This precise number wasn't arbitrary. It reflected sophisticated understanding of numerical symbolism, where 9 represented completion and fulfillment in earthly terms, while 10,000 signified infinite perfection belonging only to heaven itself. The emperor, though claiming divine mandate, still acknowledged his subordinate position to ultimate cosmic authority. Picture architects and builders counting every space, from grand throne halls to tiny storage chambers, ensuring that the total never exceeded this cosmic limit. Each room served the greater symbolic purpose, creating a physical manifestation of proper relationship between human ambition and divine order. The missing room represented more than mathematical precision. It embodied philosophical humility that prevented earthly rulers from claiming equality with heaven itself. This architectural restraint reminded everyone, from emperor to servant, the human power, however magnificent, remained finite and conditional. The Forbidden City thus became a prayer in stone, expressing both imperial grandeur and cosmic humility in one magnificent structure that honored human achievement while acknowledging divine supremacy. 40. Architecture as cosmic prayer. Every element of the Forbidden City was positioned according to strict feng shui principles and cosmic alignments, transforming the Imperial Palace into a three-dimensional mandala where architecture served as meditation on the harmony between earthly power and heavenly order. The north-south axis connected the emperor's throne directly to the North Star, ensuring that imperial authority aligned with the unchanging center around which all stars revolved. East-west positioning followed solar patterns, while individual buildings faced directions that maximized beneficial energy flows. Picture feng shui masters spending years planning this cosmic blueprint, measuring angles with astronomical precision, consulting ancient texts that recorded thousands of years of accumulated wisdom about harmonious placement. Every gate, every courtyard, every building served both practical and spiritual purposes. The palace's layered courtyards created a gradual ascent from worldly concerns to sacred authority. Visitors passed through increasingly refined spaces that prepared their minds for encounter with divine power. Each threshold marked another step toward the cosmic center where earthly and heavenly authority merged. This wasn't just impressive architecture. It was physical philosophy demonstrating Chinese belief that human institutions should mirror cosmic patterns. The Forbidden City proved that buildings could be prayers, that space itself could teach wisdom about proper relationship between human ambition and divine order. 41. Colors that sang of heaven. The Forbidden City's color scheme wasn't random decoration, but a carefully orchestrated symphony of meaning. Where golden roof tiles proclaimed imperial power, red walls celebrated prosperity and happiness, and white marble bases provided pure foundation for divine authority. Gold represented the emperor's connection to the sun, that celestial source of light and life that made all earthly existence possible. These tiles caught sunlight and reflected it back toward heaven, creating visual dialogue between Imperial Palace and cosmic forces that legitimized earthly rule. Red, the color of good fortune and joy, wrapped around the palace walls like protective energy, announcing that this was a place where happiness and prosperity flowed freely. Red also symbolized the life force itself, the vital energy that connected all living beings in one vast web of cosmic relationship. White marble provided the pure foundation, representing honesty, integrity, and the moral clarity required for just governance. These stones came from quarries hundreds of miles away, transported at enormous expense, because symbolic perfection demanded material perfection. Together, these colors created visual harmony that instructed viewers in proper relationships between human authority and cosmic order. The Forbidden City didn't just house imperial power. It taught everyone who saw it about the aesthetic and moral principles that should guide civilized existence. 42. Paintings you could walk through. Chinese scholar gardens were conceived as three-dimensional paintings where visitors could step inside artistic composition and experience beauty through movement rather than mere observation, creating living poetry that changed with each step and every season. These weren't gardens in the Western sense of organized flower beds and geometric paths. They were miniature universes designed to capture the essence of natural landscapes within confined urban spaces. Master gardeners studied mountains and rivers, then recreated their spiritual essence using rocks, water, plants, and architectural elements. Picture walking through these living masterpieces, where every turn revealed new compositions carefully framed by windows shaped like flowers, fans, or circles. Pathways curved deliberately to hide the garden's full extent, encouraging contemplative wandering and creating the illusion of vast space within tiny courtyards. Each element carried symbolic meaning. Rocks represented mountains and eternal endurance. Water embodied life's flowing energy, while plants provided seasonal change that kept these spaces eternally alive and evolving. Pavilions offered rest points for meditation, their poetic names inviting visitors to engage imagination as well as sight. These gardens proved that art needn't be confined to walls or frames, that entire environments could become aesthetic experiences teaching visitors about harmony, balance, and the infinite beauty available to those who learn to see with both eyes and heart. 43. Borrowing the infinite. Chinese garden designers mastered the art of borrowing scenery, using strategically placed windows, gates, and openings to frame distant views and incorporate elements far beyond the garden's actual boundaries, creating illusions of infinite space within tiny courtyards. This technique required extraordinary vision. Gardeners had to imagine how their confined spaces would interact with distant mountains, neighboring rooftops, or even sky itself. A carefully positioned circular window might frame a distant pagoda, making it appear to be part of the garden's own composition. Picture master designers spending months studying sightlines, determining exactly where to place openings that would capture the most beautiful distant elements while hiding unsightly intrusions. They understood that perception could be shaped, that psychological space was more important than physical dimensions. Seasonal changes added temporal depth to these borrowed views. Spring blossoms beyond the walls became temporary garden elements. Autumn leaves and distant trees provided color that complemented internal plantings. Winter snow transformed borrowed scenery into ink paintings, while summer rain created misty veils that made distant mountains appear and disappear like dreams. This borrowing technique reflected Chinese understanding that beauty belonged to everyone, that wise design could make the entire world part of any small space, proving that true wealth lay not in owning vast territories, but in learning to see infinite beauty in modest places. 44. Windows that painted light. Moon gates, hexagonal windows, and flower-shaped openings in Chinese gardens created ever-changing living paintings, where light and shadow, seasons, and weather collaborated with human design to produce compositions that never repeated themselves exactly, ensuring that each visit revealed new beauty. These architectural frames weren't just openings. They were artistic instruments that captured light like cameras and shaped views like paintbrushes. A round moon gate might frame bamboo in morning mist, transform into a sunset silhouette by evening, then become a stage for moonbeams dancing through leaves at night. Picture craftsmen carefully carving these openings, understanding that each shape would interact differently with light and shadow throughout the day and across the seasons. Hexagonal windows created geometric patterns when sunlight streamed through, while flower-shaped openings cast botanical shadows that changed as the sun moved overhead. The windows functioned as calendars, marking seasonal progression through the subjects they framed. Spring brought fresh green shoots, summer offered lush abundance. Autumn provided golden leaves, while winter revealed elegant bare branches against snow. Visitors learned to appreciate not just what they saw, but how they saw it, understanding that beauty emerged from the interaction between observer, architecture, and natural forces. These windows taught that art wasn't static decoration, but dynamic collaboration between human creativity and natural change. 45. Courtyards that held generations. The Sihuan courtyard houses represented perfect architectural harmony, where multiple generations could live together while maintaining both privacy and connection, creating physical spaces that reflected Confucian ideals about family relationships and social hierarchy. These quadrangular compounds, enclosed by buildings on all four sides, created private family worlds within bustling cities. The northern main building, receiving the most sunlight and offering the best views, housed the family patriarch and served as the formal center for important ceremonies and decisions. Picture 3 or 4 generations sharing these harmonious spaces: grandparents in the honored northern quarters, married children in east and west wings, grandchildren playing in central courtyards while servants managed household affairs from southern buildings. The central courtyard served as the family's shared heart, where children learned traditional values through daily interaction with elders, where festivals brought everyone together for celebration, where the rhythm of family life played out under open sky. Wealthy families might own multiple connected courtyards, creating elaborate compounds that could house dozens of relatives while maintaining proper relationships between different family branches. These architectural gems demonstrated how physical design could support social harmony, creating spaces that honored both individual needs and collective identity. 46. The dance of seasons and celebrations. Chinese festivals followed the eternal rhythm of agricultural life and lunar cycles, creating a rich tapestry of celebration that remained remarkably consistent across dynasties, connecting people to both natural cycles and cultural heritage through shared moments of joy and reflection. Each festival served multiple purposes: honoring ancestors, marking seasonal changes, strengthening family bonds, and providing communities with shared experiences that transcended social class boundaries. Spring Festival welcomed new agricultural cycles, while autumn celebrations gave thanks for successful harvests. Picture families preparing for months before major festivals, cleaning houses thoroughly to welcome good fortune, preparing special foods that carried symbolic meanings, gathering materials for decorations that would transform ordinary spaces into celebration venues. These festivals created time outside ordinary time, when normal social rules relaxed and entire communities joined in celebration. Rich and poor shared similar foods, wore comparable decorations, participated in the same traditional activities that connected them to centuries of ancestors who had celebrated identically. The celebrations provided rhythm to life that connected human existence to cosmic patterns, reminding everyone that individual lives were part of larger cycles of renewal, harvest, rest, and rebirth that governed all existence. 47. 15 Days of Golden Joy. Spring Festival, known today as Chinese New Year, lasted 15 magnificent days of continuous celebration that brought families together from across the empire, creating the world's largest annual human migration as people traveled incredible distances to share this most important cultural moment. The celebration began with thorough house cleaning, symbolically sweeping away the previous year's misfortunes to make space for incoming good luck. Families decorated their homes with red paper cutouts, golden characters proclaiming prosperity, and fresh flowers that promise spring's return. Picture reunion dinners where tables groaned under traditional dishes, each food carrying specific meanings that promised wealth, longevity, happiness, or harmony for the coming year. Fish ensured abundance. Dumplings resembled ancient gold ingots, while round foods promoted family unity. Children received red envelopes containing lucky money, while adults exchanged visits that reinforced social relationships and community bonds. Fireworks exploded throughout the nights, their brilliant colors and thunderous sounds designed to frighten away evil spirits and announce humanity's triumph over darkness. The 15-day celebration culminated with a lantern festival, when thousands of glowing orbs floated through night skies like terrestrial stars, carrying prayers and wishes toward heaven while illuminating the earth with collective hope and joy. 48. Dancing Between Worlds. The Qingming Festival beautifully combined ancestor worship with spring celebration, where families honored departed relatives through grave sweeping and offerings while simultaneously celebrating life's renewal through kite flying and outdoor festivities. Picture families arriving at ancestral burial grounds, carrying cleaning supplies, fresh flowers, and favorite foods of the departed. Grave sweeping wasn't mournful duty, but loving preparation for spiritual reunion, removing weeds and debris while sharing family news with those who had passed beyond. After completing these solemn duties, the same families would spread blankets for picnics in nearby fields, watching children fly colorful kites that danced between earth and sky like visible prayers. The contrast wasn't contradictory, but complementary, honoring both death's reality and life's persistence. Spring's return provided the perfect backdrop for this dual celebration. New growth emerging from earth that held ancestral bones, fresh flowers blooming near ancient graves, demonstrating that death and life were partners in the eternal dance of existence. The festival taught that proper reverence for the past provided the strongest foundation for enjoying the present, that honoring ancestors' sacrifice allowed descendants to fully appreciate the gifts of continued existence and seasonal renewal. 49. The Sacred Mathematics of Marriage. Marriage in Imperial China followed the elaborate 3 letters and 6 etiquettes, a system that remained remarkably stable across dynasties, transforming what might have been simple union into complex social ceremony that created bonds between families and communities rather than just individuals. The 6 etiquettes included proposal, birthday, matching through fortune-telling, betrothal gifts, wedding gifts, choosing an auspicious date, and the final wedding ceremony. Each step required careful negotiation, ensuring compatibility not just between bride and groom, but between their entire family networks. Picture matchmakers consulting detailed astrological charts, comparing birth dates and times to determine cosmic compatibility, while families investigated each other's reputations, financial stability, and moral character. Marriage wasn't romantic impulse, but social architecture requiring careful planning and community approval. Professional go-betweens managed these complex negotiations, ensuring that both families received appropriate respect while protecting everyone's dignity during delicate discussions about dowries, living arrangements, and future expectations. This elaborate system recognized marriage as too important for individual decision alone, that successful unions required support from extended families and broader communities who would help sustain the relationship through inevitable challenges. 50. The tea that sealed forever. Betrothal gifts in Imperial China always included tea. This tradition was so fundamental that it gave rise to the enduring phrase, tea presents, making this humble beverage an essential element in the sacred architecture of Chinese marriage customs. Tea's inclusion wasn't arbitrary. Its evergreen nature symbolized unchanging loyalty and steadfast affection that would endure through all seasons of married life. Unlike flowers that fade or fruits that spoil, tea leaves maintain their essence indefinitely when properly preserved. Picture elaborate gift presentations, where families offered dragon and phoenix bridal cakes alongside precious teas, pairs of poultry representing harmony, and various symbolic items promising fertility and prosperity. Each gift carried specific meanings that spoke to different aspects of successful marriage. The tea ceremony during wedding celebrations became a profound moment, where bride and groom served tea to their elders, receiving blessings and officially accepting their places within the family hierarchy. This simple act of serving represented submission to family authority while demonstrating the couple's commitment to honoring tradition. Tea's journey from plant to cup mirrored the transformation that marriage would bring. Separate leaves becoming harmonious blend, individual flavors merging into something more beautiful than either could achieve alone, creating unity while preserving distinctiveness. 51. The cosmic cuisine of emperors. Imperial Chinese cuisine elevated cooking to philosophical art form, where every dish embodied principles of balance and harmony drawn from traditional medicine and cosmology, creating meals that nourished both body and spirit according to ancient wisdom about health and cosmic order. Palace kitchens balanced the five tastes: sweet, sour, bitter, spicy, and salty, while considering the four natures: hot, warm, cool, and cold, according to principles derived from the I Ching and traditional Chinese medicine. Each meal became a lesson in cosmic harmony. Picture hundreds of specialized chefs working in hierarchical departments: meat preparation artists, vegetable virtuosos, roasting masters, baking experts, and rice specialists. Each group preserving secret techniques passed down through generations of imperial service. Master chefs understood that food was medicine, that proper combinations could strengthen the body, clarify the mind, and harmonize emotions. They selected ingredients based on seasonal availability, individual constitution, and therapeutic properties that promoted health and longevity. Visual presentation was as important as flavor. Dishes arranged like landscape paintings with colors and textures, creating edible poetry. Meals became aesthetic experiences that engaged all senses while demonstrating the chef's understanding of beauty, balance, and the art of transformation. 52. The feast that lasted forever. The legendary Manchuhan Imperial Feast represented the pinnacle of culinary achievement, featuring over 300 dishes that could extend across multiple days, creating an eating experience so elaborate it seemed designed to feed both earthly guests and celestial spirits. This extraordinary banquet combined the finest elements of Manchu and Han Chinese culinary traditions, demonstrating the Qing dynasty's commitment to cultural synthesis while showcasing the empire's vast resources and sophisticated tastes. Picture guests moving through course after course, each dish a masterpiece of preparation and presentation. Cold appetizers gave way to hot entrees, soups alternated with dry preparations, sweet delicacies balanced savory complexity, creating a rhythm of flavors that sustained interest across impossible duration. The feast required months of preparation, with ingredients sourced from across the empire. Sea cucumbers from coastal waters, birds' nests from tropical caves, rare mushrooms from mountain forests, each component representing the empire's ability to command resources from every corner of its vast territory. Attending such a banquet wasn't just dining. It was participating in political theater that demonstrated imperial power, cultural sophistication, and the ability to transform raw materials into transcendent experiences that bordered on the spiritual. 53. The soup that tempted saints. Buddha jumps over the wall. Soup achieved legendary status through its incredible complexity, requiring 30 precious ingredients including shark fin, abalone, and sea cucumber, simmered for hours in wine to create an aroma so intoxicating that even Buddhist monks would allegedly abandon their vegetarian vows. This masterpiece of culinary art originated in Fujian province, where master chefs spent decades perfecting the delicate balance of ingredients that included not just expensive seafood, but carefully selected herbs, aged wines, and secret seasonings that transformed individual components into unified symphony. Picture the preparation process. Ingredients arriving from across the empire, each requiring specific treatment before joining the communal pot. Shark fin needed days of soaking. Abalone required careful tenderizing, while sea cucumber demanded precise rehydration that restored its original texture. The cooking process itself was meditation. Chefs tending their creation for hours, adjusting heat and timing with the precision of alchemists seeking to transform base materials into liquid gold. The resulting soup achieved such aromatic intensity that its fragrance could permeate entire buildings. The dish's name captured Chinese humor about human weakness, suggesting that even the most spiritually disciplined individuals might succumb to earthly temptation when confronted with such perfectly crafted sensory experience. 54. The ladder made of learning. The imperial examination system operated for over 1,300 years, from the Sui dynasty until 1905, representing one of humanity's earliest and most enduring experiments in meritocracy, where any male could theoretically rise to high government position through educational achievement rather than birth or wealth. This remarkable institution occurred at 4 levels: local, prefectural, metropolitan, and palace, with each stage dramatically reducing the number of candidates while increasing the prestige and difficulty of advancement. Success required not just intelligence, but extraordinary perseverance and dedication. Picture thousands of young men across the empire, spending years memorizing the 4 books and 5 classics, mastering poetry composition, developing elegant calligraphy, and cultivating the analytical skills needed to write sophisticated essays on governance and philosophy. Examination halls during testing periods resembled military camps, with candidates locked in tiny cells for days, surviving on simple food while pouring their entire educational preparation onto paper under intense time pressure that would determine their entire future. The system created a scholar gentry class that valued education above wealth, generating the cultural belief that everything else is inferior. Only studying is superior, establishing learning as the highest human pursuit and most reliable path to social advancement. 55. The mathematics of dreams. Despite the examination system's theoretical openness to all, only about 5% of candidates successfully passed each level, creating a brutal selection process that nevertheless provided enough social mobility to sustain hope and maintain the system's legitimacy across centuries. This low success rate wasn't designed cruelty, but reflected the genuine difficulty of mastering classical Chinese literature, philosophy, poetry, and essay writing to the level required for government service. The standards were so high that even brilliant scholars often required multiple attempts. Picture examination compounds filled with thousands of hopeful candidates, many taking the tests repeatedly across decades of their lives, some beginning as young men and continuing into old age before finally achieving success or abandoning their dreams. The fortunate few who succeeded gained immediate transformation in social status, receiving not just government positions, but the respect accorded to proven scholars. Their success brought honor to entire families and communities, justifying years of sacrifice and study. Those who failed weren't necessarily failures. Many became teachers, private secretaries, or local scholars who contributed to their communities while maintaining hope that their children might achieve the success that eluded them. 56. The wisdom of functional hierarchy. Imperial China organized society around the 4 occupations: scholars, farmers, artisans, and merchants, ranked not by wealth or birth, but by their perceived contribution to social welfare, creating a hierarchy based on function rather than inherited status. Scholars held the highest position as moral leaders and administrators, their education and ethical training making them qualified to guide society according to Confucian principles. They wore distinctive silk robes and cultivated refinement through music, games, calligraphy, and painting. Farmers ranked second despite their often modest wealth, honored as providers of essential food that made all other occupations possible. They were celebrated during spring planting ceremonies and protected by laws that recognized their fundamental importance to social survival. Picture artisans in third position, valued for creating useful goods that enhance daily life. They organized into hereditary guilds that closely guarded trade secrets while maintaining high standards of craftsmanship that brought honor to their specialized skills. Merchants occupied the lowest rank despite often possessing great wealth, viewed as unproductive middlemen who profited from others' labor without creating genuine value. This ranking reflected philosophical bias toward production over trade, creation over speculation. 57. The paradox of wealth and status. In Imperial China's social hierarchy, merchants ranked lowest despite often being the wealthiest members of society, creating a fascinating paradox where economic success didn't automatically translate into social respect or political influence. This seemingly contradictory arrangement reflected Confucian philosophy that viewed merchants as parasitic middlemen, profiting from the labor of farmers and artisans without contributing genuine value to society. Merchants moved goods but didn't create them, accumulated wealth but didn't generate prosperity. Picture wealthy merchants living in magnificent homes, wearing expensive clothing, enjoying luxurious foods, yet unable to purchase the respect automatically accorded to scholars or even farmers. Their children often use commercial wealth to buy education, seeking to transform money into the social status that learning provided. Government policies reinforced this hierarchy through sumptuary laws that restricted merchant clothing and residential architecture, preventing wealth from purchasing the visual markers of higher social rank. Merchants could live well, but couldn't live like scholars. This system created interesting social dynamics, where economic power and social status existed in tension, ensuring that wealth alone couldn't dominate society and that moral cultivation remained more valuable than material accumulation. 58. The diplomacy of gifts. China's tributary system represented sophisticated international diplomacy, where foreign rulers acknowledged Chinese supremacy through ceremonial tribute payments in exchange for trading privileges, military protection, and legitimacy, creating a network of relationships that maintained regional stability for centuries. This arrangement operated on the principle of loose rein, allowing tributary states virtual autonomy in domestic affairs while maintaining Chinese symbolic authority in international relations. Countries voluntarily participated because the benefits outweighed the costs. Picture elaborate tributary missions, where Korean, Vietnamese, and Japanese delegations arrived bearing exotic local products, ceremonial gifts, and diplomatic correspondence. The ritual of kowtowing before the emperor was balanced by lavish reception ceremonies that honored visiting dignitaries. Remarkably, China typically provided more valuable gifts than it received, effectively subsidizing the system for political prestige rather than economic profit. Imperial generosity demonstrated wealth and power while binding tributary states through gratitude and mutual benefit. The system facilitated remarkable cultural exchange, with Chinese innovations like printing, gunpowder, and agricultural techniques spreading to neighboring countries while foreign ideas, art forms, and technologies flowed into China, creating a dynamic network of mutual enrichment. 59. When Chinese ships ruled the seas. Zheng He's treasure ships dwarfed European vessels, with the largest reaching over 400 feet in length, making Columbus's flagship look like a rowboat by comparison and demonstrating Ming China's overwhelming maritime supremacy during the early 15th century. These floating cities represented the pinnacle of shipbuilding technology, constructed with multiple watertight compartments that made them virtually unsinkable, sophisticated rudder systems that provided exceptional maneuverability, and magnetic compasses that enabled precise navigation across vast ocean distances. Picture these maritime giants. Their hulls decorated with painted dragons and phoenixes, their multiple masts carrying silk sails that blazed like sunset clouds against blue skies, their decks bustling with hundreds of sailors, soldiers, diplomats, and craftsmen. The largest ships served as command centers, equipped with luxurious cabins for admirals and diplomats, workshops for maintaining smaller vessels, storage areas for diplomatic gifts, and even floating gardens that provided fresh vegetables during long voyages. These vessels proved that China possessed both the technological capability and economic resources to dominate global maritime trade, making their eventual abandonment one of history's great mysteries that changed the course of world development. 60. Floating cities that changed history. Zheng He's first expedition in 1405 included 317 ships carrying 27,870 men, creating a floating city larger than most land-based settlements of the era, demonstrating organizational capabilities that wouldn't be matched by any other nation for centuries. This massive fleet wasn't just impressive in size, but remarkable in its diversity and specialization. Treasure ships carried diplomatic gifts and trade goods. Troop transports moved soldiers and military equipment. Supply vessels held food and water for months at sea, while support ships provided everything from medical facilities to communication networks. Picture the logistics required: coordinating departure schedules for hundreds of vessels, managing food and water for nearly 30,000 people, maintaining discipline and communication across a fleet that stretched for miles when traveling in formation. The human diversity matched the naval complexity. Sailors and navigators from coastal provinces worked alongside interpreters who spoke dozens of languages, military specialists trained in various weapons, medical personnel capable of treating injuries and illnesses, and diplomatic experts skilled in foreign customs and negotiation. This floating civilization traveled as far as the eastern coast of Africa, establishing Chinese presence throughout the Indian Ocean and demonstrating that China possessed the capability to project power globally if it chose to do so. 61. The giant who led giants. Admiral Zheng He himself was as extraordinary as the fleets he commanded. A 7-foot-tall Muslim eunuch whose remarkable physical presence was matched by diplomatic genius and navigational skills that enabled him to negotiate successfully with rulers from Southeast Asia to Africa. Born Mahi into a Muslim family in Yunnan province, he was captured as a child during Ming military campaigns and eventually castrated to serve in the imperial court. His Islamic background proved invaluable, providing linguistic and cultural knowledge that facilitated relationships with Muslim rulers throughout the Indian Ocean. Picture this imposing figure, towering over most people he encountered, commanding immediate respect through sheer physical presence, while demonstrating the cultural sensitivity needed to navigate complex diplomatic situations across multiple civilizations. His eunuch status, while personally tragic, politically enabled his unprecedented authority. As someone incapable of founding his own dynasty, he posed no threat to imperial succession, allowing emperors to grant him extraordinary power without fear of betrayal. Zheng He's expeditions represented more than maritime achievement. They demonstrated China's ability to understand and work with diverse cultures, projecting soft power through impressive displays of wealth and technology rather than military conquest alone. 62. The Golden Highway Between Worlds. The legendary Silk Road wasn't a single route, but a vast network of interconnected trade paths spanning over 4,000 miles from China to Europe, active from 130 BCE to 1453 CE, creating the world's first truly global economy and cultural exchange system. This wasn't simply about silk, though Chinese silk remained the most prized commodity. The network carried jade, porcelain, tea, spices, precious stones, and countless other goods that traveled impossible distances through the hands of countless merchants and across dozens of political boundaries. Picture caravans of hundreds of camels, loaded with goods that had already traveled thousands of miles, stopping at caravanserais built specifically for their protection and resupply. These fortified inns provided security, fresh provisions, and opportunities for traders to rest, and exchange information. Few merchants traveled the entire route. Instead, goods passed through countless middlemen and trading posts in a complex web of economic relationships that spanned 3 continents. A piece of Chinese silk might change hands dozens of times before reaching European markets. The Silk Road's greatest achievement wasn't economic but cultural, facilitating the spread of religions, technologies, artistic styles, and ideas that shaped human development across Eurasia for over a millennium. 63. The world's first global marketplace. Along the Silk Road, goods didn't simply change hands, they transformed civilizations. Chinese innovations like gunpowder and paper traveled westward, while Mediterranean glassware and Arabian horses journeyed east, creating technological and cultural exchanges that accelerated human development across 3 continents. The network required extraordinary international cooperation, with different kingdoms providing security, maintaining roads, and supplying provisions for traveling merchants. Treaties and diplomatic agreements created safe passage corridors that transcended political boundaries. Picture the magnificent diversity of goods and people. Persian carpets sharing caravan space with Chinese porcelain. Indian spices mixing aromas with Central Asian furs, while merchants speaking dozens of languages negotiated prices in cosmopolitan trading centers. Buddhism spread along these routes from India to China. Christianity reached Central Asia and China, while Islam expanded eastward, proving that ideas traveled as efficiently as goods when people from different cultures met in commercial contexts. The cultural fusion was remarkable. Chinese artistique technique influencing Persian miniature. Islamic architectural styles reaching Chinese mosques, while Central Asian musical instruments transformed court entertainment across multiple civilizations. 64. The land of liquid gold. Romans called China Ceres, meaning land of silk, demonstrating how completely Chinese silk dominated luxury markets and shaped foreign perceptions of this distant civilization that seemed capable of transforming cocoons into threads more precious than silver. Roman demand for Chinese silk was so intense, it created significant trade imbalances, with silver flowing eastward to pay for silks while Chinese goods flowed west. Roman moralists complained that luxury imports were draining the empire's wealth and corrupting traditional values. Picture wealthy Roman women wearing silk garments that had traveled 4,000 miles, each thread representing months of skilled labor by Chinese silk workers whose techniques remained mysterious to Western eyes. Silk became status symbol more valuable than jewelry. The Roman name Ceres derived from the Chinese word for silk, demonstrating that China's international reputation rested primarily on this single product that no other civilization could successfully replicate. Chinese silk remained unique in quality and production methods. This naming convention revealed how trade goods could define entire civilizations in foreign minds. China became synonymous with silk, just as later it would be known for porcelain, tea, and other distinctive products that shaped global perceptions. 65. The river that united an empire. The Grand Canal, stretching nearly 1,200 miles, represents one of history's greatest engineering achievements, connecting northern and southern China through an artificial waterway that facilitated trade, cultural exchange, and administrative control for over a millennium. Built primarily during the Sui dynasty, this massive project required unprecedented organization and labor mobilization. Engineers had to solve complex problems of elevation change, water supply, and seasonal flooding while creating a transportation system that could handle heavy commercial traffic. Picture the enormous scale of construction. Millions of workers digging channels, building locks, and constructing the supporting infrastructure of bridges, ports, and administrative buildings that made the canal functional. Entire cities emerged along its banks to serve canal traffic. The canal transformed China's economy by enabling efficient bulk transport of rice from fertile southern regions to northern political centers, ensuring that capitals could be fed regardless of local agricultural production. This solved the persistent problem of governing vast distances with varied climates. Navigation required sophisticated engineering, including pound locks invented in 984 CE that allowed ships to move between different water levels safely. These double-gate systems represented technological innovation centuries ahead of similar European developments. 66. Stairs of water. The Grand Canal's pound locks, invented in 984 CE, solved the engineering challenge of moving ships between different water levels through an ingenious double-gate system that created temporary pools where vessels could rise or fall safely between canal segments. These water stairs worked like liquid elevators. Ships would enter the lower chamber while both gates remained closed. Then water would be added until the vessel rose to the higher level, allowing the upper gate to open for continued navigation. Picture lockkeepers managing this complex system, precisely timing water releases and gate operations to maintain proper levels while keeping commercial traffic moving efficiently. The process required both technical skill and careful coordination with approaching vessels. The technology represented a quantum leap in hydraulic engineering, solving problems that had limited canal construction for centuries. These locks enabled the Grand Canal to traverse China's varied topography while maintaining navigability across its entire length. This innovation eventually spread westward, influencing European canal construction and enabling the inland waterway systems that would prove crucial to later industrial development. Chinese lock technology literally opened the doors to modern transportation networks. 67. The human river. The Grand Canal's construction required over 5 million workers, according to some accounts, creating one of history's largest organized labor projects that transformed not just the landscape, but the lives of countless families who participated in this monumental undertaking. This massive workforce included engineers who planned the route, skilled craftsmen who built locks and bridges, common laborers who dug the channels, and support personnel who fed, housed, and managed this army of workers spread across hundreds of miles. Picture the social dynamics. Entire villages relocating to work on canal segments. Families separated for years while fathers and sons labored on distant construction sites. Communities forming around work camps that might last for decades. The project incorporated existing rivers and lakes where possible, but required hundreds of miles of completely new channels that had to be excavated by hand using simple tools. Workers moved earth one basketful at a time, creating waterways wide enough for large commercial vessels. The human cost was enormous, but the canal's completion created thousands of permanent jobs for boatmen, lock keepers, port workers, and administrators while enabling economic integration that benefited millions of Chinese for centuries. 68. The poetry of perfect strokes. In Imperial China, calligraphy held a position unmatched by any visual art in other civilizations, revered as the purest expression of human character and cosmic harmony that could reveal the writer's moral cultivation through the quality of their brushstrokes. This supreme art form used the four treasures of the study: brush, ink, paper, and inkstone, which master calligraphers treated as sacred instruments capable of channeling both human intention and natural energy through perfectly controlled movements. Picture scholars spending decades perfecting their brushwork, understanding that each character must fit within an imaginary square while maintaining perfect balance between all strokes. The rhythm and flow of writing became a dance between artist and cosmic forces. Tang Dynasty texts described ideal calligraphy in profoundly human terms. Characters should stand balanced on all four sides, leaning or standing upright like a proper gentleman. Writing became moral exemplar as well as artistic achievement. Master calligraphers were believed to channel the energy of both the human body and natural vitality through their brushwork, making each piece a unique manifestation of the writer's inner cultivation and spiritual development. 69. The architecture of words. Every Chinese character was designed to fit within an imaginary square, requiring precise stroke order and balance proportions that transformed writing into architectural art, where every line had to support the overall structure while contributing to perfect visual harmony. This geometric discipline demanded extraordinary precision. Calligraphers had to visualize the completed character before beginning their first stroke, understanding how each line would interact with every other element to create unified composition. Picture students practicing for hours, learning not just how to form individual strokes, but how to space them perfectly within their invisible boundaries. Too much space and the character appeared weak. Too little and it seemed cramped and uncomfortable. The square provided structure, but not rigidity. Master calligraphers learned to create dynamic tension within these constraints, making characters that seemed to breathe and move while maintaining perfect formal balance. This architectural approach reflected Chinese understanding that true freedom emerged from mastering limitations rather than abandoning them. That creative expression achieved its highest form when working within established parameters that had been perfected over centuries of practice. 70. Characters that lived and breathed. Chinese calligraphy text described ideal characters as standing balanced on all four sides, leaning or standing upright like a proper gentleman, demonstrating how deeply the Chinese understood writing as embodying human virtues and social ideals. This anthropomorphic view of characters wasn't metaphorical decoration, but recognition that writing reflected the writer's moral character and spiritual cultivation. Sloppy brushwork suggested careless thinking, while elegant strokes revealed disciplined mind and harmonious spirit. Picture calligraphy masters examining student work, reading not just the text meaning, but the personality revealed through stroke quality, spacing decisions, and overall compositional choices. Each piece became a character assessment, as well as artistic evaluation. The comparison to gentlemanly behavior was precise. Good characters maintained proper posture without stiffness, displayed strength without aggression, and achieved beauty through balance rather than ostentation. They embodied Confucian ideals of moderate perfection. Students learned that improving their calligraphy meant improving themselves, that developing better brushwork required developing better character. The practice became moral cultivation disguised as artistic training, transforming daily writing into continuous self-improvement. 71. The spirit beyond form. Chinese ink painting, known as water ink painting, captured the spiritual essence of subjects rather than their photographic appearance, using only black ink and water to create infinite gradations of tone and meaning that spoke directly to the viewer's soul. This meditative art form required years of training in brush control. Artists learned to vary pressure, speed, and moisture to create everything from bold mountain peaks to delicate bamboo leaves with single strokes that couldn't be corrected or repeated. Picture master painters approaching their silk or rice paper, understanding that every mark was permanent and that success depended on perfect preparation, mental clarity, and spiritual harmony with their subject matter. The technique emphasized spontaneity within discipline. Artists practiced basic strokes for decades until they became automatic, then relied on intuition and spiritual connection to guide their brushes in creating unique compositions. Unlike Western painting that added layers of color and detail, Chinese ink painting achieved maximum expression through minimum means, proving that suggestion could be more powerful than description and that empty space was as important as painted areas. 72. The eloquence of emptiness. In Chinese ink paintings, empty space was as important as painted areas, representing the Taoist concept of wu wei, non-action that accomplishes everything by allowing natural forces to flow without interference or artificial control. This use of negative space wasn't simply artistic technique, but philosophical statement about the nature of reality itself. The unpainted areas invited viewers' imagination to complete the scene, making each person an active participant in artistic creation. Picture landscapes where vast, empty areas suggested infinite distance, where a few brushstrokes indicating birds could evoke entire skies, where suggested water could flow more convincingly than detailed rendering might achieve. Master painters understood that too much detail would overwhelm the viewer's imagination, that the power of suggestion exceeded the impact of description. They painted not what the eye saw, but what the heart felt when contemplating nature's essence. This embrace of emptiness reflected deeper Chinese understanding that fullness and emptiness were complementary aspects of complete reality, that wisdom lay in knowing when to act and when to refrain from action, when to paint and when to leave silk untouched. 73. Mountains and Water of the Soul. Shanshui paintings, literally mountain water, landscapes, weren't mere representations of natural scenery, but spiritual journeys that embodied Taoist principles of harmony between humanity and nature while inviting viewers to walk contemplatively through painted worlds. These monumental works typically featured tiny human figures wandering through vast mountainscapes, emphasizing human humility before nature's grandeur while suggesting that true wisdom came from understanding one's proper place within cosmic order. Picture master painters like Fan Quan creating compositions where towering peaks seemed to breathe with life, where flowing water suggested the eternal movement of Tao itself, where mist and clouds provided transitions between earthly and celestial realms. The paintings functioned as meditation aids. Viewers could lose themselves in contemplating painted paths that wound through mountain valleys, imagining themselves as the tiny travelers who appeared throughout these landscapes. Each painting was accompanied by poetic inscriptions, creating multimedia artworks that engaged multiple senses and levels of meaning. Poetry and painting collaborated to create complete aesthetic experiences that nourished both mind and spirit. 74. Stone that held heaven's virtue. In Chinese culture, jade transcended its identity as mere mineral to become embodiment of moral virtue, spiritual purity, and cosmic harmony, with Confucius identifying 5 virtues in jade that reflected ideal human qualities and divine perfection. For over 7,000 years, Chinese artisans transformed this incredibly hard material, using only abrasive powders and rotating tools powered by foot pedals or water wheels, creating objects of breathtaking beauty through meditative labor that might take months or years per piece. Picture craftsmen working with jade's natural colors and flaws, turning apparent imperfections into artistic features that enhanced rather than diminished the stone's beauty. They collaborated with jade rather than imposing artificial designs upon it. Confucius taught that jade's luster represented benevolence. Its translucency suggested honesty. Its resonance when struck embodied wisdom. Its resistance to breaking symbolized courage, while its sharp edges that wouldn't cut demonstrated justice. Emperors were buried in suits made from jade plates connected with gold wire, believing this precious stone would preserve their bodies for eternity while maintaining spiritual connection between earthly remains and celestial destiny. 75. The Green Fire of Emperors. Imperial Green Jadeite. The most prized variety of jade, commanded prices higher than diamonds, and was reserved exclusively for the Empress Dowager's jewelry, representing not just material wealth, but spiritual authority that connected earthly power to cosmic perfection. This rare stone, found primarily in Burma, displayed such intense color that it seemed to glow with inner fire. Chinese connoisseurs could distinguish dozens of subtle variations in green jade, each commanding different prices and carrying different symbolic meanings. Picture imperial workshops where master carvers spent years creating single pieces, understanding that they were working with stone more precious than gold, more meaningful than silver, more beautiful than any earthly treasure. The Empress Dowager's jade collection became legendary, including bracelets, rings, hair ornaments, and ceremonial objects that demonstrated both imperial wealth and the feminine principle's connection to Earth's most perfect mineral. Jade's value wasn't purely aesthetic. It represented immortality, purity, and the union of human craftsmanship with natural perfection. Wearing jade wasn't just decoration, but spiritual practice that connected the wearer to cosmic harmony. 76. Patience measured in years. Jade carving demanded such extraordinary patience that single pieces might require months or years to complete. with artisans working slowly and meditatively to avoid shattering stones harder than steel while creating delicate beauty that would last for millennia. The hardness that made jade virtually indestructible also made it incredibly difficult to work, requiring techniques passed down through generations of specialized craftsmen who guarded their methods as carefully as alchemists protected their formulas. Picture master carvers using bamboo tools with abrasive powders, slowly grinding away tiny amounts of stone while gradually revealing the forms hidden within each piece. This wasn't quick production, but spiritual dialogue between human intention and mineral reality. The meditation required for jade carving influenced the carver's character, teaching patience, persistence, and respect for natural materials that couldn't be rushed or forced. Many artisans reported that jade work improved their emotional balance and spiritual clarity. Finished jade pieces carried the energy of their creation process, embodying not just artistic skill, but the peace and mindfulness that their makers had cultivated during years of patient labor. 77. Paper promises that changed the world. Around 1024 CE, in the merchant city of Chengdu, China quietly revolutionized global economics by creating the world's first government-issued paper currency, called jiaozi, transforming simple promissory notes into a sophisticated monetary system that facilitated trade across vast distances. What began as practical convenience among local merchants evolved into revolutionary financial technology when 16 wealthy merchant houses formed a consortium to standardize their paper bills, creating the first example of private banking organization that governments would later adopt. Picture these early paper bills, featuring intricate designs of houses, trees, and people that made counterfeiting difficult, backed by government reserves that could be exchanged for metal coins at any time, creating trust-based currency centuries ahead of similar European developments. The Song government quickly recognized paper money's potential, establishing currency factories in major cities that employed thousands of workers daily, printing money that enabled commerce on unprecedented scales while demonstrating sophisticated understanding of monetary theory. By 1175, the Hangzhou factory alone employed over 1,000 workers producing currency that facilitated trade throughout the vast empire, proving that prosperity could be literally manufactured when backed by governmental authority and public trust. 78. From bark to banking. The evolution from merchant promissory notes to government currency represented one of history's most significant financial innovations, demonstrating how practical solutions to commercial problems could transform into revolutionary economic systems that changed civilization itself. Initially, wealthy merchant houses issued paper certificates representing deposits of metal coins, allowing traders to conduct large transactions without carrying heavy copper or silver. These private notes gained acceptance through the merchants' established reputations and guaranteed exchange. Picture commercial districts where paper promises circulated as freely as metal money. Merchants discovering that lightweight certificates were more convenient than heavy coins for long-distance trade, while providing better security against robbery. The government's decision to nationalize this innovation reflected recognition that monetary control was too important for private hands, that standardized currency backed by imperial authority could facilitate economic integration across the entire empire. This transition from private to public currency established principles still governing modern monetary systems. The understanding that money's value depends on trust and authority rather than intrinsic worth of materials used to represent it. 79. The ori that printed prosperity. By 1175, the Hangzhou currency factory employed over 1,000 workers daily in the mass production of paper money, creating what may have been history's first example of industrial-scale financial manufacturing that enabled commerce on previously impossible scales. This monetary factory operated with remarkable sophistication, using complex designs that incorporated multiple security features while maintaining production speeds that could meet empire-wide demand for currency. Quality control ensured consistent standards across millions of bills. Picture specialized workers handling different aspects of production, artists creating intricate designs, printers managing complex multicolor processes, inspectors checking each bill for defects, while security guard protected both materials and finished currency from theft. The factory's output facilitated economic integration across China's vast territory, enabling merchants to conduct business from Guangzhou to Beijing using standardized currency that was accepted everywhere, while reducing the transportation costs and security risks associated with metal money. This early example of monetary manufacturing demonstrated China's advanced understanding of economic principles, recognizing that efficient currency distribution was essential for maintaining commercial prosperity across large geographic areas with diverse local economies. 80. The accident that exploded history. Chinese alchemists searching for immortality elixir accidentally created gunpowder by mixing sulfur, charcoal, and saltpeter, transforming their quest for eternal life into discovery of explosive power that would eventually revolutionize warfare across the entire world. Initially called flaming medicine, this accidental invention was first used for fireworks and signal rockets rather than military applications, demonstrating how discovery and application often follow unpredictable paths separated by decades or centuries. Picture Tang Dynasty alchemists working in their laboratories, carefully combining minerals according to ancient formulas, seeking the perfect mixture that would grant immortality, only to create something that brought death more efficiently than any previous human invention. The irony was profound. Seekers of eternal life had discovered the means for ending life more effectively than ever before. Their spiritual quest for transcendence had produced material technology that would transform human conflict forever. This accident illustrates how innovation often emerges from unexpected directions, how attempts to solve one problem can generate solutions to completely different challenges, and how human intentions rarely predict the ultimate consequences of their discoveries. 81. From fireworks to warfare. Song Dynasty military engineers transformed accidental gunpowder into sophisticated weapons arsenal, including fire arrows, bombs, grenades, flamethrowers, and primitive cannons, proving that Chinese inventors could rapidly convert peaceful discoveries into military applications when necessity demanded. These early gunpowder weapons weren't primitive experiments, but effective military tools. Fire arrows could set enemy structures ablaze from safe distances, while thunder crash bombs contained metal fragments that created devastating anti-personnel effects. Picture Song armies deploying these revolutionary weapons against nomadic invasions, using technological superiority to compensate for numerical disadvantages, while demonstrating that innovation could shift military balances more effectively than traditional tactics. The development process was remarkably rapid. Within decades of gunpowder's discovery, Chinese engineers had created multiple weapon types that utilized explosive power in different ways, showing how military necessity could accelerate technological innovation. Chinese gunpowder weapons emphasized defensive applications and siege warfare rather than open field battles, reflecting strategic thinking that preferred protecting cities and fortifications over aggressive territorial expansion. 82. The spear that breathed fire. The fire lance combined traditional spear point with gunpowder charge, creating history's first firearm that could both stab enemies in close combat and project flames and projectiles at distance, representing perfect fusion of ancient and revolutionary military technologies. This innovative weapon demonstrated Chinese engineering creativity, solving the practical problem of how to integrate explosive power with existing military skills while maintaining effectiveness in various combat situations. Picture soldiers training with these hybrid weapons, learning when to use them as conventional spears and when to trigger their explosive charges, developing new tactics that maximized both traditional and innovative capabilities. The fire lance required considerable skill to use effectively, timing the gunpowder ignition properly while maintaining accuracy with both spear and projectile components, making it a weapon for elite troops rather than common soldiers. This early firearm established principles that would guide weapons development for centuries. The understanding that new technologies achieved maximum effectiveness when integrated thoughtfully with existing military practices rather than replacing them entirely. 83. Terraces that conquered mountains. Chinese agricultural terracing represents one of humanity's most impressive landscape modifications, with some terraces continuously cultivated for over 2,000 years, transforming steep mountainsides into productive farmland through engineering genius that harmonize human needs with natural topography. These step-like platforms carved into mountainsides served multiple purposes beyond creating arable land, preventing soil erosion that would otherwise wash away precious topsoil, maximizing water retention in regions where rainfall was irregular, and creating microclimates that extended growing seasons. Picture the enormous labor required. Entire communities working for generations to reshape landscapes one terrace at a time, moving millions of tons of earth and stone to create level planting areas where none had existed naturally. The engineering was sophisticated beyond its apparent simplicity. Each terrace required precise grading to ensure proper drainage while preventing erosion, with water flowing from upper levels to lower ones in carefully controlled cascades that irrigated multiple levels simultaneously. These agricultural sculptures demonstrate perfect harmony between human ingenuity and natural forces, creating some of the world's most beautiful and productive landscapes through patient collaboration with rather than conquest of challenging terrain. 84. The Dragon's Backbone Rice Paddies. The Longji Terraces, poetically named Dragon's Backbone, exemplifies sophisticated hydraulic engineering where water management transforms mountainous terrain into productive rice paddies through ingenious systems that have operated successfully for centuries without mechanical intervention. These terraces follow the natural contours of mountain slopes, creating graceful curves that seem to flow like frozen water while maximizing both planting area and water efficiency. Each level is carefully positioned to receive optimal irrigation from the level above. Picture the seasonal transformation, spring bringing fresh green shoots that gradually fill each terrace, summer revealing intricate patterns of different rice varieties, autumn painting the mountainsides gold with ripening grain, while winter shows the elegant bare lines of empty terraces. The water management requires community cooperation, with families sharing irrigation responsibilities and maintaining the channels that feed their terraces. This collaborative necessity has strengthened social bonds for generations. Maintenance demands constant attention, repairing terrace walls damaged by weather, clearing irrigation channels blocked by debris, adjusting water flows to accommodate changing seasonal needs, proving that sustainable agriculture requires continuous human partnership with natural forces. 85. The Rhythm of Terrace Time. Rice cultivation on Chinese terraces follows a cascading schedule where upper terraces are planted first and lower ones harvested last, creating a temporal waterfall where agricultural activities flow downhill in carefully timed sequence that maximizes both water use and labor efficiency. This scheduling isn't arbitrary, but reflects sophisticated understanding of water management and plant biology. Upper terraces need earlier planting to ensure adequate water supply for lower levels, while harvest timing prevents water competition between different growth stages. Picture farming families coordinating their activities across multiple terrace levels, with planting and harvesting creating community-wide rhythms that have synchronized human activity with natural cycles for countless generations. The system creates remarkable efficiency. The same water that irrigates upper terraces eventually nourishes lower ones, while rice straw and organic matter from upper harvests enrich soil in lower levels, creating closed-loop agricultural cycles that sustain productivity indefinitely. This temporal choreography demonstrates how agricultural innovation emerges from patient observation of natural patterns, proving that working with rather than against environmental conditions produces both practical success and aesthetic beauty. 86. The Dual Heart of Qing Government. The Qing dynasty created an ingenious dual administrative system pairing Manchu and Chinese officials in corresponding positions, ensuring effective governance while maintaining ethnic balance that prevented either group from dominating imperial administration completely. This sophisticated arrangement reflected remarkable political wisdom. The Manchu rulers understood that successful governance required Chinese administrative expertise while maintaining Manchu political control, creating partnership rather than domination. Picture government offices where Manchu and Chinese colleagues worked side by side, sharing responsibilities while bringing different perspectives and cultural knowledge to administrative challenges, with Manchu officials holding final authority but relying on Chinese partners' practical experience. The system prevented the cultural conflicts that had destroyed previous foreign dynasties. Manchu rulers avoided both complete assimilation that would eliminate their identity and complete separation that would alienate Chinese subjects. This ethnic cooperation extended throughout government levels, from central ministries to local administration, creating a hybrid bureaucracy that combined the best elements of both traditions while maintaining political stability across diverse populations. 87. Emperors who spoke two worlds. Qing emperors became bilingual masters, fluent in both Manchu and Chinese languages, demonstrating their commitment to governing diverse populations effectively while maintaining their cultural identity as rulers from beyond the traditional Chinese heartland. This linguistic achievement wasn't merely practical necessity, but symbolic bridge building. Emperors who could communicate in both languages could understand and respond to concerns from all their subjects while maintaining credibility with both ethnic communities. Picture imperial court ceremonies conducted in multiple languages, with emperors shifting fluidly between Manchu and Chinese as they addressed different audiences, demonstrating cultural competence that strengthened their legitimacy with diverse populations. The bilingual requirement extended to imperial family members and high officials, creating a governing class that could navigate multiple cultural contexts while making policy decisions that considered various ethnic perspectives and needs. This linguistic sophistication enabled remarkable cultural synthesis, allowing Qing rulers to preserve Manchu identity while embracing Chinese governmental traditions, proving that effective leadership often requires mastering multiple cultural languages, both literal and figurative. 88. The longest reign in Chinese history. The Kangxi Emperor's 61-year reign established the record for longevity in Chinese imperial history, demonstrating remarkable personal stamina and political acumen that created the foundation for Qing dynasty prosperity while proving that effective leadership could transcend ethnic boundaries. Ascending the throne at age 7, Kangxi began ruling personally at 13 after eliminating powerful regents, showing early political maturity that enabled him to consolidate power while learning the complex art of governing the world's largest empire. Picture this extraordinary ruler spending hours daily reviewing state matters, personally leading military campaigns against rebellions, traveling throughout his empire on inspection tours that strengthened bonds between ruler and subjects while demonstrating imperial presence. His reign combined military success with cultural achievement, conquering Taiwan and defeating various rebellions, while commissioning the monumental Kangxi Dictionary and supporting artistic projects that enriched Chinese civilization. Kangxi's longevity enabled policy consistency rarely achieved in Chinese history. His sustained leadership allowed long-term projects to mature while creating governmental stability that facilitated economic growth and cultural flowering. 89. The dictionary that defined a language. Kangxi commissioned the monumental Kangxi Dictionary, a comprehensive reference work containing over 47,000 Chinese characters that remains influential today, demonstrating the emperor's commitment to preserving and organizing Chinese linguistic heritage for future generations. This massive lexicographical project required years of scholarly collaboration, with teams of editors collecting, organizing, and defining characters from throughout Chinese literary history, while establishing standardized forms that would guide language use for centuries. Picture scholars working in imperial libraries, comparing variant character forms from different historical periods, debating proper pronunciations and meanings, creating the most comprehensive Chinese language reference ever attempted. The dictionary wasn't merely academic exercise, but practical tool for governmental administration, providing standardized character forms that enabled consistent communication across the vast empire, while preserving linguistic knowledge that might otherwise be lost. This imperial patronage of scholarship demonstrated how effective rulers could support cultural preservation, using governmental resources to create lasting intellectual achievements that outlived the dynasties that sponsored them. 90. The lake that never was. The Summer Palace's Kunming Lake, covering 2.2 square kilometers, was entirely artificial, created by imperial engineers who excavated millions of tons of earth to create this aquatic masterpiece while using the displaced soil to construct the magnificent Longevity Hill. This massive engineering project demonstrated imperial commitment to creating beauty regardless of cost, transforming flat terrain into varied landscape that provided both aesthetic pleasure and practical recreation for imperial family and court. Picture thousands of workers laboring for years, digging the lake basin while carefully shaping its shoreline to create pleasing views from various pavilions and bridges, understanding that every curve and angle would affect the overall artistic composition. The lake wasn't just decorative water feature, but complex hydraulic system, designed to maintain proper water levels through seasonal variations while supporting boat traffic and aquatic gardens that enhance the palace's beauty. This artificial lake creation reflected Chinese understanding that human artistry could improve upon nature, that careful engineering could create landscapes more beautiful than natural formations while demonstrating imperial power over elemental forces. 91. The corridor that told history. The Summer Palace's long corridor stretches 728 meters, featuring 14,000 painted scenes from Chinese history and folklore, creating the world's longest painted walkway that functions as both architectural marvel and comprehensive visual encyclopedia of Chinese culture. This extraordinary structure serves multiple purposes, providing weather protection for walking between palace buildings while creating immersive cultural experience that educated visitors about Chinese history, literature, and artistic traditions through painted narratives. Picture artists working for years, creating thousands of individual paintings that together told the complete story of Chinese civilization, from legendary emperors to famous battles, from classical poetry to folk tales that preserve cultural memory. Each painting was carefully positioned to create narrative flow. Visitors walking the corridor experienced Chinese history chronologically while enjoying protection from sun and rain, making education pleasurable and aesthetic appreciation practical. The corridor demonstrates how architecture could serve educational purposes, transforming necessary walkways into cultural experiences that strengthen visitors' understanding of their heritage while providing artistic beauty that enhanced daily life. 92. Medicine that mapped the invisible. Traditional Chinese medicine developed over 2,000 years ago with theoretical foundations established in the Huangdi Neijing, creating systematic understanding of human health based on energy flow patterns that remain influential in medical practice worldwide today. This ancient medical system recognized that human health depended on balanced energy circulation through specific pathways called meridians, with blockages or imbalances in these invisible channels causing illness that could be corrected through various therapeutic interventions. Picture ancient physicians developing detailed maps of energy points throughout the human body, identifying locations where needles could influence internal organ function, creating treatment protocols based on thousands of years of careful observation and experimentation. The system integrated physical therapy with spiritual understanding, recognizing that emotional balance, seasonal harmony, and lifestyle choices all affected health outcomes, making treatment holistic rather than merely addressing isolated symptoms. This comprehensive approach influenced medical traditions throughout Asia, demonstrating how systematic observation and theoretical development could create healthcare systems sophisticated enough to maintain effectiveness across multiple millennia. 93. Needles that spoke to heaven. Chinese physicians developed detailed acupuncture point systems along energy meridians, creating precise maps that identified specific locations where needle insertion could influence internal organ function, demonstrating sophisticated understanding of body systems invisible to conventional anatomy. Acupuncture wasn't random needle placement, but systematic therapy based on theoretical understanding that connected surface points to internal functions through energy pathways that traditional anatomy couldn't detect, but clinical practice could verify. Picture master acupuncturists training for decades, learning to locate hundreds of precise points on the human body while understanding how different combinations of needles could treat various conditions, developing sensitivity that bordered on supernatural accuracy. The meridian system provided theoretical framework that explained how local treatment could affect distant organs, why needles in the foot could treat headaches, how points on the hand could influence digestion, creating medical logic that seemed mysterious but proved clinically effective. Modern research continues investigating these traditional maps, using electronic instruments to measure electrical conductivity at acupuncture points while trying to understand mechanisms that ancient Chinese physicians utilized successfully for millennia without modern technology. 94. The scholar who cataloged nature's pharmacy. Li Shizhen created the monumental Compendium of Materia Medica, cataloging 1,892 medicinal substances and 11,000 prescriptions, representing the most comprehensive traditional medicine reference ever compiled through decades of research that combines scholarly study with personal experimentation. This extraordinary physician spent nearly 30 years traveling throughout China, collecting samples of medicinal plants, interviewing local healers, testing remedies on himself, while compiling traditional knowledge that had been scattered across centuries of medical practice. Picture Li Shizhen in remote mountains, gathering rare herbs while documenting their properties, visiting local markets to examine medicinal materials, consulting with experienced practitioners who possessed knowledge unavailable in written sources. His compendium wasn't merely catalog, but critical evaluation. Li Shizhen corrected errors in previous medical texts while adding new discoveries, creating reliable reference that physicians could trust for accurate information about therapeutic properties and proper preparation methods. This masterwork influenced medical practice throughout Asia, providing standardized information that enabled consistent treatment while preserving traditional knowledge that might otherwise have been lost, demonstrating how individual scholarship could benefit entire civilizations. 95. The pulse that revealed everything. Chinese physicians developed the world's most sophisticated pulse diagnostic system, capable of detecting 28 different pulse positions and dozens of pulse qualities that revealed the condition of internal organs and energy systems without invasive examination. This diagnostic art required extraordinary sensitivity. Practitioners learned to feel subtle differences between pulses described as floating, deep, slow, rapid, slippery, rough, wiry, and many other qualities that indicated specific imbalances requiring particular treatments. Picture master physicians placing their fingers on patients' wrists, spending long minutes feeling for pulse variations that could reveal pregnancy before other symptoms appeared, predict illness before patients felt sick, determine optimal treatment methods for individual constitutions. Pulse diagnosis represented perfect fusion of empirical observation with theoretical understanding. Physicians could assess liver function by feeling specific wrist positions, evaluate heart health through pulse rhythm, determine kidney strength through pulse depth and quality. This non-invasive diagnostic method enabled treatment without surgical intervention, allowing doctors to understand internal conditions through external signs while maintaining patient comfort and dignity throughout the medical consultation process. 96. 28 windows to health. Skilled Chinese physicians could feel up to 28 different pulse positions on both wrists, with each position corresponding to specific organs and body systems, creating a diagnostic system so sophisticated it seemed to read the body's internal story through fingertip sensitivity. This pulse mapping wasn't arbitrary but reflected systematic understanding developed through centuries of clinical observation. with specific wrist locations reliably indicating the condition of corresponding internal organs through measurable pulse characteristics. Picture the training required. Medical students spending years learning to distinguish subtle pulse variations while understanding which combinations indicated specific diseases, developing sensitivity that could detect changes too slight for mechanical instruments. The system enabled personalized treatment. Physicians could assess individual constitution through pulse quality while determining which therapeutic approaches would be most effective for particular patients, making treatment as unique as each person's pulse signature. Modern physicians continue studying traditional pulse diagnosis, using electronic sensors to measure pulse variations while trying to understand how ancient practitioners achieved diagnostic accuracy that rivals contemporary medical technology through purely manual examination. 97. The Symphony of 28 Rhythms. Chinese pulse diagnosis recognized 28 distinct pulse qualities, from floating and deep to slippery and rough, each carrying specific meaning about internal health conditions that skilled practitioners could read like physicians reading laboratory reports. These pulse qualities weren't poetic descriptions, but precise clinical terminology. Floating pulses indicated surface conditions that hadn't penetrated deeply, while deep pulses suggested chronic issues affecting internal organs. Slippery pulses often indicated pregnancy or digestive disorders. Picture physicians developing vocabulary for pulse sensations, creating standardized terminology that enabled medical communication while training students to recognize subtle differences that determine treatment success, developing professional language as precise as any scientific measurement. The quality assessment required both sensitivity and experience. Beginning practitioners might feel only obvious pulse variations, while masters could detect dozens of subtle qualities that revealed complex health patterns, making pulse diagnosis both art and science. This diagnostic sophistication enabled treatment individualization. Physicians could determine not just what disease was present, but how it manifested in each particular patient, allowing therapeutic approaches tailored to individual constitution and condition severity. 98. Living with Heaven's Calendar. Chinese medicine emphasized living in harmony with seasonal cycles, recognizing that human health required adjusting daily routines, diet, and activities to match natural changes, creating lifestyle approaches that prevented illness through environmental harmony rather than treating disease after occurrence. Spring corresponded to liver system energy and growth, requiring lighter foods and gentle exercise that supported the body's natural cleansing processes while avoiding activities that would interfere with seasonal detoxification and renewal. Picture Chinese families adjusting their entire lifestyle according to seasonal requirements, changing their diet with each season, modifying exercise routines to match natural energy patterns, arranging work schedules that harmonized with cosmic rhythms. Summer aligned with heart system and maximum yang energy, calling for cooling foods and adequate rest that prevented overheating while protecting cardiovascular function during the year's most intense energetic period. Autumn linked to lung system and gathering energy, requiring nourishing foods and respiratory exercises that prepared the body for winter while strengthening immune function against seasonal transitions that could trigger illness. 99. The 4 Seasons of Health. Each season corresponded to specific organ systems in Chinese medical theory. Spring energizing the liver, summer supporting the heart, autumn strengthening the lungs, while winter nourished the kidneys, creating annual cycles that guided therapeutic approaches throughout the year. This seasonal correspondence wasn't merely theoretical, but practical guide for maintaining health through environmental harmony. Spring required liver-supporting foods like leafy greens, while winter demanded kidney-strengthening foods like warming soups and root vegetables. Picture traditional Chinese households changing their entire lifestyle with seasonal transitions, adjusting sleeping schedules to match natural light patterns, modifying clothing and housing arrangements to harmonize with weather changes, planning important activities during seasonally appropriate periods. The seasonal approach recognized humans as part of natural cycles rather than separate from environmental forces, making health maintenance a matter of staying synchronized with cosmic rhythms that governed all life. This integration created sustainable healthcare, preventing illness through lifestyle harmony rather than treating disease after environmental imbalance had already caused health problems, demonstrating how wisdom could emerge from understanding natural patterns. 100. The eternal dance of time. Chinese civilization created sustainable rhythms of life that remained consistent across dynasties, where seasonal work and rest patterns connected human activity to natural cycles, demonstrating how agricultural wisdom could create cultural stability that endured for millennia. Spring brought intense preparation and planting activity, while summer demanded cultivation and community celebration. Autumn required harvest work and preservation, while winter provided rest periods for family gathering and cultural transmission. Picture Chinese families following these eternal patterns, their social calendars adjusting to agricultural needs, their business activities harmonizing with natural energy flows, their celebrations marking transitions that connected human life to cosmic cycles. Even wealthy urbanites followed these seasonal rhythms, adjusting their entertainment and social activities to match the agricultural calendar that governed Chinese civilization, proving that cultural wisdom transcended economic class boundaries. This harmony between human activity and natural cycles created sustainable civilization, where individual lives contributed to collective patterns that could continue indefinitely, demonstrating how wisdom emerged from understanding rather than conquering natural forces. 101. The mirror that reflected the world. Imperial China demonstrated successful multiculturalism while maintaining strong cultural identity, proving that civilizations could remain deeply rooted in their own traditions while staying open to foreign influences, creating synthesis that enriched rather than diminished cultural authenticity. The Tang dynasty's cosmopolitan capital welcomed traders and scholars from across Asia, while Qing rulers successfully integrated Manchu and Chinese traditions, showing how cultural confidence enabled beneficial exchange rather than defensive isolation. Picture Chinese cities where foreign religions flourished alongside traditional beliefs, where international merchants contributed to economic prosperity, where cultural exchange created artistic innovations that enhanced rather than replaced traditional forms. This openness reflected Chinese understanding that truth had many forms, that wisdom could emerge from unexpected sources, that cultural strength came from selective adoption of beneficial elements rather than rigid rejection of foreign influence. Imperial China's legacy demonstrates that sustainable civilization requires both rootedness and flexibility, both cultural pride and intellectual curiosity, both tradition and innovation working together to create societies that could endure and prosper across centuries. 102. Gifts that changed everything. Chinese innovations spread worldwide, with printing, gunpowder, paper, and the magnetic compass fundamentally changing human civilization, proving that technological development in one culture could benefit all humanity through patient cultural exchange and transmission. These weren't just mechanical inventions, but conceptual breakthroughs. Printing democratized knowledge, gunpowder transformed warfare and engineering, paper enabled widespread literacy, while magnetic compasses made global exploration possible. Picture these technologies traveling along trade routes, carried by merchants who might not have understood their full potential, gradually adopted and modified by different cultures until they became universal human tools rather than specifically Chinese innovations. The spread wasn't instantaneous, but gradual, taking centuries for Chinese innovations to reach their full global impact, demonstrating how cultural diffusion requires both time and favorable conditions for successful technology transfer. Modern civilization builds upon these ancient Chinese foundations, proving that innovation transcends cultural boundaries while honoring the creative societies that first developed humanity's essential tools for progress and prosperity. 103. Beauty that crossed continents. Tang Dynasty art styles influenced artistic traditions from Central Asia to Southeast Asia, with Chinese Buddhist sculpture and painting techniques spreading through cultural networks that connected diverse civilizations. demonstrating how aesthetic excellence could transcend political boundaries. Chinese artistic innovations traveled with Buddhist monks, Silk Road merchants, and diplomatic missions, gradually influencing local artistic traditions while being modified by different cultural contexts, creating artistic synthesis that enriched multiple civilizations. Picture Chinese painting techniques being adapted in Japanese temples, Chinese architectural styles appearing in Korean palaces, Chinese decorative motifs inspiring Indian textiles, all while maintaining recognizable Chinese origins within foreign contexts. This artistic influence wasn't cultural imperialism, but natural diffusion of excellence. Other cultures voluntarily adopted Chinese techniques because they enhanced local artistic traditions rather than replacing them, creating collaborative rather than competitive cultural relationships. The enduring influence demonstrates how aesthetic achievement becomes universal human heritage, transcending the specific cultures that created it while honoring the creative genius that made such beauty possible. 104. The Merit Revolution. China's imperial examination system inspired merit-based institutions in Britain, France, and the United States, proving that Chinese governmental innovations could influence Western political development while demonstrating universal human desire for fair and effective leadership selection. European observers studying Chinese administration recognized the examination system's advantages over hereditary and corrupt appointment practices, gradually adopting modified versions that created modern civil service systems throughout the Western world. Picture Western reformers examining Chinese examination procedures, understanding how educational requirements could improve governmental quality while reducing corruption and favoritism that plagued traditional European appointment systems. The influence wasn't direct copying, but creative adaptation. Western societies modified Chinese examination principles to fit their own cultural context while maintaining the core insight that merit should guide governmental selection. This cross-cultural influence demonstrates how good ideas transcend cultural boundaries, that effective institutions can inspire beneficial change across completely different political and social systems, proving wisdom's universal applicability. 105. The Balance That Endures. Imperial China's greatest achievement was demonstrating that civilizations could successfully balance tradition with innovation, creating cultural synthesis that preserved essential values while adapting to changing circumstances, providing a model for sustainable development that remains relevant today. This balance wasn't static maintenance of old forms, but dynamic integration of new elements with established foundations, showing how change could strengthen rather than weaken cultural identity when guided by wisdom and careful consideration. Picture Chinese society continuously evolving while maintaining core principles, absorbing useful foreign innovations while preserving traditional values, creating stability through adaptation rather than rigid resistance to change. The Chinese example proves that cultural confidence enables beneficial innovation, that societies secure in their foundations can experiment with new possibilities without losing their essential character, that true strength comes from flexibility rather than rigidity. Imperial China's legacy teaches modern civilizations how to honor the past while embracing the future, demonstrating that sustainability requires both rootedness and growth, both preservation and transformation working together in harmonious balance. As we close this gentle journey through Imperial China's vast tapestry of wisdom, we are reminded that civilization's greatest achievements arise not from conquest or domination, but from the patient cultivation of harmony between heaven and earth, tradition and innovation, individual aspiration and collective responsibility. In the quiet moments before sleep, we can still hear the echo of temple bells across ancient courtyards, the soft rustle of silk in imperial gardens, and the timeless wisdom that true strength lies in creating beauty rather than destruction, in nurturing growth rather than forcing change, in understanding that we are all part of one vast, interconnected story that continues to unfold under heaven's eternal watch.